what I need.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Tri-State Council May 25th Finance Meeting at 6:03. I'll ask my colleagues and everyone to join in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would love Councilmember Cummings to lead us in the pledge, please.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Good. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. We'll do a quick roll call. Councilmember Gully.
Certainly, I am on a spotty internet out here.
Well, you better find good internet. We have a very long meeting ahead of us, mister.
I can hear you fine. Let me know if it cuts out and I'll switch to phone.
Okay. Councilmember Gully.
Here.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Here.
Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Councilmember Cummings.
I am present.
Councilmember Zaluski.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Council President Mantello's here. We have 7 present, no one absent. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the prior finance meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they were produced.
Thank you, Councilmember Zaluski. And sorry, I made the motion. So is there a second?
Yes, second.
Thank you. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, 7-0, the minutes pass. Mara, I believe we have a few folks signed up for the public forum. We will go, you know what? Let's go into the public forum and then we'll have Andy do the AUD, okay?
Okay, we have 3 people signed up. Angela Beeler's not signed in yet, so the 2 people who are signed in are Kylie Spinelli and then Rhea Drysdale, and if Angela signs in, we'll get her at the end. So I'm going to move Kylie over first.
Awesome, thank you. While Mara's moving Kylie over, we have a chock full agenda tonight, and Kylie has joined us. Hello, Kylie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for joining the Tri-State Council Finance. You are on, and we don't have a timer in front of you. The last meeting, Councilmember Cummings did have a timer. You do have 5 minutes, and I'd appreciate you sticking to that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So meeting after meeting, we hear you guys talk about trust. Trust between the community and trust between the police, trust between the community and the city government. We're told time and time again that the city and its police are working on rebuilding trust, but simultaneously the city is undermining it. Sneaking in an ordinance to accept a grant in order to encrypt emergency communications is not how you build trust. While other cities across the state were collaborating with their community members and working on police reform and transparency under the executive order from the governor, the city of Troy was quietly applying for a grant from New York State Department of Homeland Security under the guise of anti-terrorism to further hide what Troy's crooked police are doing. And then after the grant was awarded, then you got started on the PRRC. So this grant that you applied for and were awarded is the New York State Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program. Approved expenditures under this program are found on FEMA's authorized equipment list and include respirators, SCBAs, PPE such as medical gloves, and yes, radio equipment. But at one of the recent meetings, our own firefighter came on to tell you that they are lacking basic resources. Yet you still want to accept this grant to encrypt radios. Why didn't the city apply to use this grant for some much needed equipment for our fire and EMS? Or you could have applied for a similar grant through the same department, the statewide interoperable communications grant program, which could have funded physical security enhancements including lighting, street lights, something we've been saying that we needed improvements on for a very long time. Why, when presented with all these options, does the city of Troy choose encryption, the one we need absolutely the least? And to me, it's obvious, and to a lot of people, it's obvious. It's because having the communications public allows the people to hear what's happening, because the police have been caught by listeners multiple times engaging in misconduct and abuse. Because the radio provides a small form of accountability and transparency for an otherwise largely unregulated police department, we have tried every avenue imaginable of seeking accountability from this department, and we're shut down every time, and this is no different. So I really want you all to think, when you're thinking about approving this grant, why? Is this really going to do anything for counterterrorism? Encrypting the day-to-day dispatch, that's not going to do anything for counterterrorism. It only encourages the terrorism that the police inflict on our residents every day. And I don't want to hear an argument that somebody could evade the police using a scanner app. Anybody who listens and watches something happening in front of them knows that it's at least 2 minutes behind. There's no way you're going to get ahead of the cops being 2 minutes behind listening on the scanner feed. It's just not a viable excuse. I could understand encrypting special operations, warrants, things of sensitive nature, but I don't understand or condone encrypting all communications. This is a very obvious and pathetic attempt at hiding from transparency, and you're not fooling us. So I strongly oppose Ordinance 38, and I strongly oppose encryption of routine emergency communications. And I am telling you all to vote against it. I think the city of Troy, once again, has made a very poor decision on where to allocate their funding. Your priorities are skewed. Again, it's obvious. It's very frustrating and harmful to the people in your respective districts that are suffering as a result. And all of this does not build the trust that you all think that you are. So that ends my public comment.
Thank you, Kylie. Later on, you will see some legislation regarding the LEDs, and we've asked the chief to join us this evening, who will talk about this grant. Thank you for joining us.
I really would like to know why. So
Okay,
no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mara.
Next is going to be Rhea Drysdale.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Rhea.
There we go. Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. You are with the Tri-City Council of Finance. Thanks for joining.
Great, thank you for having me. Question, Kylie just said a lot in a very good way. So I won't reiterate what she's stated. I'll just say, is this for encryption? So Ordinance 38 is very vague. It's very broad. There's not a lot of detail in there, but the reason that this came up is that I think a number of you know that I'm responding to fires as they happen, having had friends in the Broadway fire. And then someone asked if I could help with the 4th Street fire, and then the 9th Street fire, and then the Phelan Court fire, and then another fire 2 nights ago on Oakwood. And now it's just becoming a thing. And what I'm realizing is that we need mutual aid. We need support services. I'm usually there way ahead of Red Cross. I'm usually there the one that's sometimes saying, should we call Red Cross? Can we get them here, or helping families advocate for that? And when that happens, Red Cross is not showing up in the way that you think. They're giving money and passing and connecting people with services, but what someone needs on the side of the street in that moment is reassurance. They need water. They need someone to tell them to walk away from the smoke so that they don't end up in the hospital having a medical emergency, which has happened at least twice that I know of in very recent fires. And they just need compassion. And I've found from the county that looks like uncoordinated volunteer response, something that we can expect anytime there's an emergency from community members. I'm happy to be labeled as an uncoordinated volunteer from the community, and I'd like to continue to do that. That's going to become very difficult if we are not aware of fires happening. We just rely on social media and someone saying there's flames shooting outside of my neighbor's house, and then it slowly makes its way everywhere. The person who is reliably always there, however, is Sidewinder. And Sidewinder shows up without fail to photograph and take video. And I asked him very recently, he mistook me for Red Cross. Have you seen the family? Is everyone okay? Started sharing details. He asked if I was Red Cross. I said no. And then he said, well, they're going to be shutting down the radios real soon, right? They're encrypting it. They're total lockdown for everybody. Because of all the protests last year and the riots, the city's locking everybody out. Well, that was alarming to hear. I heard it again at the next fire a week later in front of a potential city council candidate. And the story was the same. The city's locking everybody out. They don't want anyone in their business because of the riots and the protests. Encryption is a national trend. It's something that's happening everywhere. It's infrastructure. It has to do with a lot of technical things that my brain can't wrap itself around. Talk to my dad again, district chief, and I think he's the 14th busiest in the entire country. And he said, look, encryption's not bad necessarily, right? It's being done for HIPAA. It's being done for protection. If we're looking at urban areas and we want to think about soft bodies in crowded places and what that means, it makes sense to have coordinated responses and to try to encrypt and absolutely encrypt at different times. But I don't understand routine, like across the board, day-to-day encryption, if it means locking out the media or if it's being done in response to protests and raids. And I don't even know if that's occurring. And we can't get an answer from the city council members we talk to who don't know what's happening. So I would just urge the city to have more transparency, to tell us what is going on, and to make sure that we're not hearing it from someone who admittedly made mistakes, very racist mistakes on social media, and continues to show up to all of the city emergencies that occur. And I would certainly hope that if you do encrypt, that there are not leaks that are illegal and tips from various departments, fire or police, to different news outlets or folks like Sidewinder showing up. That needs to stop. And it's absolutely happening now, and it will continue if encryption occurs, and that is illegal. So that's about all I had to say tonight.
Thank you, Bria, and thank you again for all your support with helping the fire victims. Thank you. Okay, Mara, has Angela joined us?
Yeah, Angela Baylor did join us. I'm promoting her now.
Thank you. Hi, Angela. You are with the Tri-State Council Finance Committee.
Hold on.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Okay.
Thank you. Trying to find a quiet spot for a kid.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here similarly to the prior two speakers that I heard about Ordinance 38. I find it a little bit alarming to be hearing this from someone like Sidewinder, and then doing due diligence and reaching out to city council people and asking them, what do you know about this? A grant from Homeland Security that was granted to the city back in September of last year. And now this is to pass the budget to apply this grant. The budget then, when you take a look at it, is really vague. So I just started asking some questions. What do you know about this? And folks are saying this, I don't know yet. We'll find out about this at the meeting. And so it's concerning because what is suggested by this person about this is that it is to potentially remove the ability for transparency and accountability related to police communications. And if you pair that then with someone having information that some of our city council reps don't have, it is alarming because why do certain people know about things ahead of time? Why don't we get more time so that we have the ability to look into these things? How much time are city council members going to have to really dig into what this is and what it means? People have been, if amateur hobbyists have been on radio scanners for a very long time, accountability activists, media activists, people who are just generally in the media, access police scanners, and it's not an uncommon thing. People have been thinking about it now in a moment where people are seeking more transparency and accountability on policing and trying to find the routes towards that. And so having some sense of being able to hear what's happening in your city in regards to the kind of hour-to-hour workings of the police department is an important aspect of that. And so I guess, so some of the questions that I passed along to some various city council members are, what is the application of this? When you look into the FEMA codes about what is there in the budget, it's talking about credential keys. So that makes me think encryption. Is this full encryption? Is this partial encryption? Are people versed in what that means? Especially right now. I mean, we've been going through the Executive Order 203 process, all about questions of where we build trust, where we find transparency, how do we have accountability, what's going on with the police objective review board, things like this, places where people can have, as residents, some kind of impact on what policing means in our city. So it's concerning to me, again, the routes of communications about police communications. And, it's awkward to be making these statements before we even get to this ordinance, but I just, we got information ahead of this. And so we're asking it now so that perhaps some of you on the city council will ask these questions when you start to discuss this bill. And I know, there's been tech magazines and things like this covering this. Are people, reading the kind of materials about what has been happening, particularly since June 2020 of last year, where cities are investing lots of money to encrypt, to cut down on access, to close down these channels of communication, right at the moment, again, where people are asking for more accountability, trying to find moments of transparency, and folks like Rhea who are utilizing it to be active participants and responding to people facing traumas and crisis. So giving social services that perhaps need more investment in the city and that aren't getting it in moments. So yes, I hope that everyone will ask a lot of questions about what this means. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I really appreciate you joining us, and we will get some answers from Chief Owens. Thank you. Okay, we'll move along to the agenda. And next on the agenda, we have our esteemed comptroller, a new daddy, Andy. Thank you for joining us. And I believe Andy has a PowerPoint for us. And obviously a tough year. And we all know that we all work together to be very conservative. We're fortunate to get some aid money restored. However, I know that Andy's going to talk to us. We did end the year in a deficit. Certainly could have been a lot worse if the council and the mayor didn't work together to act on this. So take it away, Andy, and thank you.
All right, good evening. I will put the AUD up just so that everyone can follow along.
Oh, Andy, also, if you want to make your offer to council members, if they want to go more in depth, to certainly reach out to you for a one-on-one.
Yeah. So it's a very comprehensive document, more so than prior years, and I'm going to touch on that in just a second. So if council members want to go through the document in depthly, I would propose and recommend that we meet individually, just because if we say we will be here for hours if we go through all 75 pages. What I want to do tonight is kind of go give the results of the general water, sewer, and garbage funds touch on a couple other things, point some things out in the document itself. And then if you'd like to meet from there, I'd be more than glad to. So that's kind of I kind of want to say it about a 1,000-foot view, 10,000-foot view tonight, as opposed to getting very granular. Again, just because of the length of time it will take to go through, because it is a balance sheet and an operating statement, at least for all of the funds. Before I get started, I do want to thank everyone in my office who helped get this filed, especially Jean Hoyt, who entered this entire document. And due to some personal circumstances going on, we filed it remotely this year while I was working from home. And I just want to thank everyone, especially Jean, for her patience in getting it filed and working in a different and uncomfortable way than we're usual. I'm going to start on page 2. I am going to use the highlighter just so people can see what I'm talking about. In the AUD this year, you'll see a fund called custodial. It is a asset and liability fund only. I just touch on that. There are significant changes in the general fund, the A fund, TA, trust and agency, and then the new fund, custodial. There was a pronouncement approved by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is a national group, that essentially said the TA fund no longer exists. They created a custodial fund, which is almost the same thing, but you have to account for things in a new manner. Due to the pandemic, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board delayed implementation of that until what would have been year-end 2021. However, New York State required that it be implemented. So we have implemented it, and we will be implementing it in full force in 2021, but it is reflective on the 2020 year end. The big piece of this that you will see as you go through the document, the general fund used to record all activity for the county for tax bills, county for sewer bills, the library, and the bid. That activity, according to this, can no longer be in the general fund. It must be in the custodial fund. So you see significant decreases in receivables and payables in the general fund. They are just simply in the custodial fund, and it is moving it from point A to point B, following what the rules are set out to be. Looking at page 12, this is the recap of total revenues and expenditures in the general fund for the year end 2020. These are all unaudited. Bonadio will be here on Tuesday to begin their audit in full force. The AUD does not show total surpluses and deficits in a simple manner. This is the only place that you can find it. Total revenues in the AUD in the general fund were $71.25 million. Total expenditures were $71.5 million. It left an operating deficit in the general fund of just under $249,000. Obviously, lost revenues and increased expenses from the pandemic certainly impacted that. The 20% reduction in aid to municipalities was received after February 28th, 2021, which under accounting rules means it cannot be recognized in 2020 and it must be recognized in fiscal year 2021. That is on the agenda for this evening as to a proposal on how we recognize that revenue, and B, a proposal as to how we use those funds because they are a one-time revenue. There were other expenditures outside of the pandemic in various city departments that increased from 2019 to 2020 that impacted this. And then generally we speak about at this meeting, as it stands now, we have transferred $600,000 of water fund surplus, of 2020 water fund operating surplus, $600,000 to the general fund. That amount was determined in looking at not only the state of the general fund, but also looking at the water fund. The water fund did end the year after this surplus transfer because Those are the rules. And we'll touch on their surplus in a second. Excuse me. But the amount was determined to be $600,000 in looking at the general fund as in equal with the water fund. The water fund uses its fund balance historically, and we continue to do so, to fund things like purchase of new vehicles, minor improvements to the water plant, minor other capital projects. There needs to be a fund balance that's maintained to be able to continue this practice so that either the infrastructure of the water fund doesn't age, or we're not, and either it ages or we have to issue debt, which is the situation we're in the general fund. Certainly have to also be cognizant of the fact that with the water line project beginning at the Tomahawk, and yes, there's a $10 million grant, and yes, outside communities will be contributing to it. The city will still have a sizable debt load going forward in the future for that project. So it's looking at the general fund and the water fund and determining the amount. It is the same practice that we've had each of the last at least 4 years in determining if the transfer is to be made and how much of the transfer is to be made. We have not transferred the full budgeted amount at all in the last several years, or the amount eligible to be transferred. Are there any questions about the general fund?
Councilmember Ash McPherson, go for it.
Yep, I'm trying to get my,
That's okay.
I think I lost you guys. You there?
Yes, you're all
Okay.
set. Yep.
I just wanted to ask Andy, if I'm understanding, you're talking about taking 600K out of the water fund?
We are transferring $600,000. We have transferred $600,000 of 2020 water fund surplus. You can only transfer the lesser of the
That's
amount
Tim's
you
side.
budget. You can only transfer the lesser of the amount you budget or the operating surplus in the current year.
I thought back in, and I'm sure you're gonna correct me if I'm wrong, I think back in 2018, 17, 18, we had a discussion that we weren't gonna be taking money from the water fund for transfers any longer. I thought that was back in 17 or 18.
There have been years that based off of the operating surplus in the general fund, no transfer occurred. There's been other years. In 2019, we transferred several $100,000, if I remember correctly, from the water fund to the general fund.
But I thought we had done something that we weren't allowed to take the money from the water fund because it got so depleted.
That would be water fund balance. And I can sit here and tell you today, the city has never, ever transferred fund balance from the water fund to the general fund. It has never occurred in my time here working for the city.
Okay, that's
That
where
is
I was-
that is illegal. We follow the rules from New York State. You can only transfer operating surplus in the water fund.
Okay,
Councilmember Ash McPherson, it was way before Andy. And long story short, we did pass a resolution, but two separate issues.
okay, I just want, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Andy. Thank you. Did anyone else have any questions? Okay.
All right, the next page. So moving to the garbage fund, which is page 24, if you are looking at it on paper. The total garbage fund revenues were 4.2 million. Expenditures 4.375 million. The deficit in the garbage fund was just under $133,000 unaudited for 2020. We had discussed this throughout the year. That was caused, there were no hauler permits billed. That was budgeted for. We delayed the billing and the pay-as-you-throw program, or not the pay-as-you-throw, but the fair share program downtown as a result of the pandemic. And there were more exemptions on the garbage bill than anticipated for in the budget process. So if I remember correctly, at the preliminary report, I had said that I expected a deficit. I did not know at the time the amount. It amounted to $133,000.
Any questions before Andy moves on? Andy, we had offered an extension. Did that bring in any more money as opposed to prior years, or no? Not really.
Revenue in the garbage, water, and sewer funds is recognized as it is billed, not as it is paid. An increase in payments year over year simply makes it a less amount that gets re-levied onto the property tax bills of the subsequent year, and a less amount that the general fund has to make an associated fund whole. Collection percentage wise, I do not know that off the top of my head. To page 29. And I'm going to flip pages. I'm going to have to flip pages here just to explain. The water fund. This expenditure number of 11 million, just under $12 million, includes the amount of that was transferred to the capital projects fund for the 2020 water fund capital plan. Appropriated fund balance was used to fund this. It was included in the budget as a revenue in quotes. When you appropriate fund balance, it is not an operating revenue that is recognized. So when you do the water surplus transfer under the guidance of the New York State Comptroller's Office as to how that formula is used, any transfers to capital projects funds are omitted from that calculation that are included, that are offset by appropriated fund balance. Taking out the transfer to the capital projects fund so that's apples to apples, operating revenues to operating expenditures, the surplus in the water fund, the operating surplus, was just under $1.2 million in 2020. That is down a bit from prior years, looking back, and as we discussed, that is directly attributable to a decrease in outside community sales. These are the all-in, the numbers I just highlighted are the total water sales, including the city of Troy and outside communities for 2020. As you can see, it went from 11.125 million to 10.7 million, a decrease of about over $400,000. We discussed that throughout the year. That's primarily due to two outside communities who are drawing from other sources. The sewer fund. The sewer fund, pursuant to the fund balance policy based on the CSO project that was approved several years ago. The amount that can be transferred from the sewer fund to the capital projects fund is not allowed to create a deficit in the sewer fund year over year, so that the fund balance of the sewer fund is not depleted to fund the CSO project. Based off of that, revenues equaled expenditures, and there is no surplus or deficit in the sewer fund for 2020. The fund broke even. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, as you get to the back of the document, is the long-term debt of the city. $7.7 million of state or authority loans payable is representative of the outstanding MAC debt as of December 31st, 2020. The net pension liability proportionate share, that is the amount, that is a actuarial analysis done by the New York State Retirement System through the Comptroller's Office. that values the total future cost of the pension, the future cost the city is exposed to for current employees' pensions. That amounts to $14.773 million. Total OPEB liability, other post-employment benefits, is health insurance and dental insurance. It's an actuarial analysis where in year one, a full valuation is done. In year two, a simple update is done. It is done by Nyhart, the contract that was approved by the council late last year, I believe. That total is $166 million. You usually see significant changes. We had a full-blown valuation done for December 31st, 2020. An update was done for 2019. That is the time you usually see changes based off of current market conditions, and just that it is a more thorough analysis that is done. It's also dependent on certain market conditions, but that is the cost of health. And this is very morbid, to preface this. That is the cost of health insurance and dental insurance for all employees and covered dependents as of December 31st, 2020, with no additions to the plans until everyone has passed away, or no longer eligible for health insurance. So that is the total cost. Installment purchase debt.
Andy, real
Yes.
quick, I apologize. So is that that GASB that you mentioned Nyhart does, or is that separate?
So Nyhart does the OPEB liability. That is a different GASB number. I don't recall that number off. It's GASB 75. Formerly, I believe GASB 45 and then updated. So that's a separate one.
Councilmember Cummings? Yeah,
just
sorry,
to go back for a second.
I can't see everyone. There you are. Yes,
No, that's all
Councilmember
right.
Cummings.
I think you can
Thank
only see me when I talk. I just wanted a quick question on the pension liability. Is that typical that it goes up and down that much, or what? Do you have a reason for that?
I don't ever recall it jumping to that degree. If I were to guess, it has a lot. It has this. It's the same reasons why the pension bills in 2021 jumped. It's the increase in the contribution rates. I have had discussions with the state comptroller's office about the jump. We have to circle back to it. They were going to look more into it, and we just haven't had a chance to connect since we last discussed it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, geez, could it be? I don't know.
I'm fairly confident in saying that it's directly tied to the increase in the contribution rates, the market conditions, and everything that occurred. You got it. The state's valuation date is March 31st, which in 2020 couldn't have been a worse date to have everything valued based off the market conditions.
But they didn't change their methodology or anything like that. I mean, it's all on demographics and economics, right?
Correct. Installment purchase debt, that's the outstanding installment purchase debt that the city's carrying. Compensated absences, 6.5 million. That is if every employee left on January 1st, 2021, that is the total dollar amount that would have been paid out by the city. All of these are mandatory reporting requirements. Due to employees' retirement system, this is the balance, principal and interest of the outstanding pension loans that the city's currently carrying, $4.825 billion. There'll be more discussion about that on an ordinance this evening. And then bonds payable, $17.2 million of bonds are outstanding to the city. We did issue we converted bond anticipation notes to long-term debt in late January 2020 to take advantage of the interest rates at that time. So
Hey,
that is
Andy?
Yes,
Are we still at positive? Is that our bond rating now?
we are A2 with Moody's, we are A2 stable.
Okay.
That was the presentation I wanted to go through with the AUD. If you flip back from here, there's some supplementary schedules that go through all of the outstanding debt, all of the bank balances the city carries. But that's the AUD at a 10,000 foot view for 2020.
10,000 feet. I like that. 75-page report, not bad. Did the mayor or anyone want to add anything? Andy, I just want to thank you. I mean, to get in on time and to be that timely with a new child, with everything going on. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, did you want to add anything?
No, I would never try to add anything to what Andy said.
Okay, council members? All right. We're going to move along then. Okay. Let me just switch gears here, take off Andy's AUD report. Thank you again, Andy. We have Steve Strikeman has joined us, our Planning and Economic Development Commissioner, Chief Owens, Tri-Police, Monica Kuzieski, the Deputy Mayor, and Mayor Madden is with us. So getting right into it. We have no local laws. We have Ordinance 33, Ordinance Amending Chapters 234 and 247 of the Tri-City Code. Councilmember Cummings at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. I don't know, Monica, if you want to just briefly talk about the changes in the code, or Councilmember Cummings. I do think maybe a council member or two has a question, but Monica, if you just wanted, maybe just give a quick overview of the changes.
Sure. Most of this is just something that Adrian was working on before he left to go live in New Zealand. So what it is,
wondering where he went.
Yeah, I think we all wanted to go with him. He's going on a sheep farm in New Zealand.
Oh my gosh.
So what it does was it actually updates our code to actually meet a lot of our assessment. So in the city of Troy, we consider residential actually 4 units or like less than 4 units. If you look at the way that we run our assessment numbers, like the 200s, the 300s and 400s and above are commercial properties. So we changed the language to actually reflect that. You'll see where we changed from 6 to 3 units, and that way we pick up the residential. But what it does do is that it grandfathers in anybody who's already currently getting service, so that we aren't not obviously necessarily booting people that already get service from the city.
Yeah, the 6 to 3 was there. Has that been the policy? I mean, that's new, isn't it? The 6
No,
to 3.
it's always been 6. It's always been 6 units. So that's why we changed it to reflect better. NYSERDA uses, less than 4 units as a residential versus a commercial standing. And it actually matches our city code or our assessment role better. It's easier trying to collect units and to actually tally when we're going out to assess units as well too.
Council President?
Yep, Councilmember Cummings.
So is the plan to sort of expand the fair share across some of those larger units as well, or just move them towards private haulers?
They have the opportunity to opt in if they need to, if they want to. Still the same, all of that wording is still the same.
Good. Okay, that makes sense. And then do you want to talk about the exemptions as well? Because that's, I think, some good news for folks.
Yes, we've clarified the exemptions. This is that one council president that we were working on with Sally Ann, I think it was too. In a situation similar to that, we actually allowed that it could be somebody who had a vacant units, so an owner occupied
I'm having a tough time hearing you, Monica. I don't know why it's. Do you mind trying again? It's echoing, kind of.
Yep, is that better?
It suddenly
Perfect.
break up a bit.
Okay, so what it was before was the only exemption we had for occupied rental units was a two unit. And what this does is it allows for other, multiple units to be exempted without, so if it was a 3 unit and both units were vacant upstairs, they could apply for the two extra units as well.
I know, Councilmember Cummings, you're welcome to continue asking. You have the floor.
No, I think that covers it mostly. I think it's good news. Certainly, we had that was one of the places where there was some difficulty with the initial rollout with folks who have vacant units that were still paying the fee anyway for those vacant units that were in larger buildings. So I think this is helpful. I also just continue to advocate for moving towards something more like a fair share and/or pay as you throw, so that folks can pay for what they're actually using. But this is a good step in that direction. So thank you.
Okay. Council, any other questions? I had Councilmember Ash McPherson. I know. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm in reading over this, and I'm going to look under, where do I want to start? Under section 3 on C. It's showing that the statement in there says the first collection basket for each unit shall be made available to the property owner at no charge. Then it says additional baskets for the same property or replacement baskets for lost or stolen baskets shall be made available to the property owner by the commissioner according to a schedule of charges to be established. Can that be explained?
It is actually just, honestly,
It looks like that's just old language.
It's not ever something we've ever charged for.
So saying that we're not charging for it, so that should be not in here, or?
Well, I think that we elect not to charge it, but we don't have a fee schedule established.
But this is saying that the commissioner can, according
It's
to.
to be, he has the
Right,
option.
right,
So future commissioners can decide to charge for recycling bins if they want to. They're not cheap. But obviously we want people to recycle more. So I'm a fan of handing people recycling bins.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying the charging for it is what I'm questioning.
Yep, so it just says according to a schedule of charges to be established by the commissioner. There is no fees established because those get sent to the city clerk's office for publishing. And there are no fees associated right now with the bins.
And,
President?
Councilmember Ash McPherson, I mean, this will be after because I have a couple questions also, but I am going to make a motion to amend that language because we aren't charging. I certainly can't support language that is in there that opens that door, that's all. And I think the language, Monica, while we're not charging, it does open the door and it does imply that the council supports language where a fee would be set.
Understood, but that language is already in the code. It's been in the code. It was never changed.
But it's underlined, it's new language.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's in B.
Not underlined.
It's
In
in
C.
B, 3B.
In C.
Oh, okay. I was reading B with the applicable fees. Sorry.
Nope, it's in C. That's been language in the city
Oh,
code.
yeah. I recall that, and I recall fighting that back in 2015 or 16, whenever it was. Councilmember Ash McPherson has the floor, and then Councilmember Cummings.
I'm all set.
Okay, Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, I think our current system where they're free is great. Obviously, I think we have been advocating for larger and much more expensive tippable recycling bins in the future. And I think if we got to the point where we were investing in those, it could make sense to make sure property owners are responsible for keeping track of them more. And so I think there's some value in having that if we get to that point where we have the larger bins that are, I think can cost up around $100 each, and are much harder to lose as well. So I think it's valuable to have it there, but certainly I think the sense of the council is that the current system for the baskets, at least, it's better to make them available for folks.
Chair?
Yes.
Council President, sorry.
Yep, no problem. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I just want to say that, per Councilman Gully, Cummings, what he's saying here is to charge, and we have larger cans that are being handed out now. So that's what I'm concerned at. There's larger cans that are going out. So this could be saying, yeah, we're going to charge them if they lose or destroy, or if they get just damaged or whatnot. So that's what I'm concerned with on that.
Yeah, I never liked that language, but anyway. Further questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to take a slow roll. Councilmember Gully,
Yes.
Councilmember Ash McPherson,
No.
Councilmember Steele,
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings,
Hi.
Councilmember Zaluski,
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Council President Mantello, just real quick, I do recall in the language being in there, Monica, I guess the added language for each unit kind of threw me off and maybe even opened the door more. But saying that, all in all, everyone knows my feelings on the garbage fee, knows my feelings. Obviously, we need to get people to recycle more. I'm seeing more and more illegal dumping out there, and I'm concerned that we are going in a direction of a pay-as-you-throw. So I am voting no. Additionally, I don't like leaving the schedule of the fees up to the commissioner. I made that point back when the garbage fee was put in temporarily. I believe the city council should have oversight on that. So I have a real issue with that language also. So I vote no. We'll move along to, oh, I'm sorry, Mara, 5-2 passes. Ordinance 34, ordinance amending the 2021 general fund budget. The title, this is one of Andy's, and Andy, you could join me on this one. This, we do need to amend, folks, the title to Special Grants Fund, because it's establishing a special grants fund. You'll see in the language, section 1, 2021 budget amendment, special grants fund budget amendment. So we'll say, should we say ordinance establishing a 2021 special grants fund budget? Andy, how do you want to word that?
Just ordinance amending the 2021 special grants fund budget.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to amend that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Council Members Zaluski. Discussion on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The amendment passes 7-0 on the amended ordinance. Do I have a motion?
I'll
I
make a
need
motion.
this, I need the schedule, I need the schedule amended.
I
Please.
apologize. There is one more amendment to this. Andy received word that the city of Troy is receiving additional dollars to the tune, Andy, of how much additional?
I believe it's about $29,000, right? About 2 days after you passed the 2021 consolidated plan for CDBG, Carol and Skripchak found out that they had increased the funding for CDBG. It's about $29,000 more. So this would, on the Schedule A, the on number 2
Yeah.
for CDBG, that it should be $1,824,319. And then in expenditures in block 2 for CDBG, account number CD 2021-400, 2030-14 should now be $1,349,319. The money is being put into the account for the reinvestment in the Little Italy neighborhood.
South Troy reinvestment. So that's good news. Little additional money never hurts. In addition to the title, we have a second amendment per Andy. I will make a motion to amend to add those additional dollars to the South Troy neighborhood revitalization, Little Italy. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Councilmember Zaluski on the amendment. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, second amendment is passed. Now on the amended resolution, do I have a motion?
I will make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, ordinance 34 carries 7-0. Ordinance 35. Ordinance authorizing the city of Troy to accept grant funding from the Division of Criminal Justice Services for police equipment and amending the 2021 general fund budget to appropriate funding from said grant. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. Discussion. We have the chief with us. Chief, do you mind live scan grant? Want to talk about that quickly?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Live scan fingerprint equipment is for the digital capture fingerprints. For years now, we haven't really used rolled ink fingerprints any longer, although that is still a backup on rare occasions when the system is down. Our current fingerprint stations are nearing the end of their useful life. This grant will actually help us to purchase new ones. And it's a requirement that unless you have extenuating circumstances, that any fingerprints obtained be transmitted digitally to DCGS. And so this equipment will allow for us to continue to do that.
Thank you, Chief. And it is a grant, as you mentioned, and 50% match. So hence the ordinance. Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Is this the same vendor we've been using before, or is this a new vendor?
I think this is going to be a new vendor or an absorbed vendor. It used to be, I think it was Morpho Trust, and they got bought out by a different company. I can confirm the actual vendor for you, but it's the compliant equipment that's required to interface with DCGS.
So it's chosen via a RFP process by DCGS, not by us.
You kind of cut out a little. I think.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Could you repeat the question?
Just confirming that DCJS does the procurement process for this, not us.
DCJS procurement, Chief.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard at that time.
Oh, sorry.
It's DCGS approves the standards. I don't think we're still going to follow the city's procurement policy and process. My thought is it's on state contract anyway, but it does match the requirements of DCGS, so it will interface as required.
Thanks.
Further questions, discussion for the chief? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 35 carries 7-0. Ordinance 36, ordinance declaring 100 used self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, air cylinders, surplus city property, and authorizing the comptroller to sell the used SCBA cylinders for $100 each. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Council Members Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. Discussion. I saw two communities, I believe Bethlehem. I don't have it in front of me, and one other will be getting the equipment.
Boston Spa and Poughkeepsie.
Thank you. Yes,
Take care.
thank you. I unfortunately, Poughkeepsie and Boston Spa. Sorry about that. I didn't have it up. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right. Further discussion?
Council President,
Sure, Councilmember Cummings.
this is just a new process I haven't seen before, where we're choosing the purchasers and rather than going through the bidding process. I assume it's fully compliant, and just interested to know how we came by this new process. That seems like maybe getting better value for both us and neighboring communities.
Andy, do you just want to weigh in on that? I know that there's 40, I believe, at let's see, where are they? 40 at 100, and how did we get to those numbers, and what's their bidding process?
Council President, it's Rick Morrissey.
Oh, hi, Rick. Sorry about that.
I don't know a lot of the details, but this came about, I drafted this legislation at the instance of the chief. My understanding is that there's a very limited market for used scuba cylinders, and a couple of the fire departments have expressed interest to him since we replaced all our equipment and they still have, the cylinders themselves still have some useful life, that they would be happy to take them off our hands for $100. I think the chief expressed to me at some point that otherwise they might just be scrap. So,
Yeah.
and it's really good for community, for the relation with the other governmental bodies.
Yeah, kudos to the chief for keeping those relationships up. That's great to hear. Can you hear me with my video on? You're scowling.
Yeah, it's super hard hearing you, Councilmember Cummings. I did hear good relationships are good, I think.
Good enough.
All right. Okay, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, ordinance 36 carries 7-0. Ordinance 37, ordinance transferring funds within the 2021 general fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Council Members Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. Andy, I saw a couple in here. I think there was one that I had a question on, maybe the planning one. Additional, it looks like $5,000 to 50. Do you know which consultant that is? It says planning.
I
maybe.
don't know who it is off the top of my head. What it is in the budget process, monies were put into the planning department budget for consultant services that the engineering office is overseeing. So it's just aligning. We're just moving the $5,000 out of consultant services from planning to put it in engineering to align to have it paid for out of the department where the work is being overseen.
Right, engineering. I was just curious what project. We can find out over the next couple of weeks. Monica?
It's actually for the monitoring that we have to do for the South Troy Industrial Park Road.
Okay, thank you.
There's annual monitoring that has to be done on those sites.
Actually, I'm sorry, I think that one is for the Skolite site, the transfer we just did.
Okay, well then for the school light site, but it's for monitoring.
Right, but it is
Okay.
monitoring, correct.
Awesome, thank you. Really appreciate it. Further questions,
Council
discussion?
President?
Yep, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Can I just ask about the transfer for the rental of the additional street sweeper? Is that, we have two now we're using, or did we get this when one was down?
We actually rented it during the spring cleanup so that we would have the ones out doing the spring cleanup and then be able to help augment if they broke down and or if we were able to get other areas done as well too.
Okay, thank you.
It's a short-term rental. It's not a long-term rental.
Did the short-term rental, what was the cost? It looks like we're transferring $8,000. So was the cost for the second sweeper $8,000 or?
For the rental, just for the rental.
Wow. It's a lot of money. Hope it wasn't the one that didn't have the water. Jeez, that went through for
That was most likely ours.
We gotta talk about that. Okay,
I'm sure Sean Hooley would support a whole new bond resolution for new equipment.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 37 carries 7-0. I do apologize. I should have announced this at the beginning of the meeting. I am withdrawing ordinance 41, which is the transfers to the land bank. A couple people have messaged me. They did want to speak tonight, and long story short, that's what I believe Adam wanted to speak about.
That was Aaron.
Aaron, sorry, wanted to speak about Ken. So we are withdrawing that, and there is going to be further discussion regarding future land bank transfers and first refusal and just the process for that. So,
Council President?
yep, Councilmember Zaluski.
Also, I just want to note on the last vote, I don't think it's 7-0. I think it's 6-0 because Councilperson Steele had to leave us. You can read the message in the.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. That's why you are my pro tem. So back, I do apologize. Thank you. Ordinance 39 carries 6-0. And she did give us a heads up. So thank you very much. Ordinance 41 will be withdrawn, and we will be working to just look at that process.
Can I just clarify that ordinance 37 carries 6-0? Wasn't that the last one you voted on?
Okay, sorry. Ordinance 37, 6-0. Okay. And ordinance 41 is withdrawn, folks. We'll go to ordinance 38. Ordinance amending the special revenue budget to accept a New York State Homeland Security grant for the purpose of purchasing radios and related equipment. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. And the chief is here with us, and we'll talk about this grant, and then we can take questions and discussion. Thank you so much,
Council
Chief.
President.
Council President. Well, I first like, if you don't mind, to have the chief explain.
No, I think that would be very helpful. What I'm wondering is whether, I know Councilwoman Steele also had some questions on this. So I'm wondering if it might be make sense to ask on some other things first.
Yep.
If the chief is going to stay around for the whole meeting anyway. If he's trying to get out, then I'm happy to continue. But
That's fine. Perfectly fine. We'll come back to it. Thank you. I didn't realize Councilmember Steele had questions. We will skip ordinance 38, folks, but we do have a motion and a second for that. Ordinance 39, ordinance amending capital projects fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. Discussion. Andy, anything in here?
Yes, we need to amend the.
Amendment on this one as well?
What's that?
Yes.
Yes.
There's an amendment on this as well?
Yes. Ordinance 39. Andy, want to talk about the amendment, please?
Yes, so the original intention of this legislation was to amend the CHIPS, the street paving budget accounts for the 2021 only the 2021 allotments from New York State as approved within the budget. The reason for that, there's carryover from prior years, and then there's your current year allotment. And my intention had been, because we hadn't gotten final word from the state when I submitted the legislation, was to bring another ordinance amending the budget again to reconcile the budgets of what was used last year for carryover, and then make sure that our records agreed with the New York State Department of Transportation before we made that change. Similar to the prior amendments to the Schedule A, we got the letter right after I submitted the legislation. So essentially, this is going to amend for the 21 allotments and then also correct the carryover balances. It also includes the arterial maintenance funding that was increased this year to $3.7 million for the city. For touring routes, that will be included in this amendment as well. So the Schedule A will be amended, and revenues, the change for account H 503501.670 will now be $742,092.03. H 503501.670.1 will now be $3,707,698.87. And then in expenditures, there'll be an increase to H 5197 200.670 of 742.092.03, and then H 5197 200 670.1 of $3,707,698.87.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And it appears the original ordinance was $1 million higher.
It was. We used carryover last year, so I have to remove the eligible carryover that's there this year. So it's just correcting it to agree to what DOT has.
Got it. Okay. So we have a proposed amendment per Andy. I won't go through all that again. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the amendment.
Thank you. Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the amendment carries 6-0. On the amended ordinance, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Zaluski motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. I did want to ask, thank you, Monica, for your folks sending the various paving schedule. Unfortunately, my Google Earth still was not working. But saying that, what's the time frame look like, Monica, and where are we with the paving? And additionally, I'd like to see a little bit more aggressive pothole repair program. Where is it all? Thank you, Monica.
Yep, so the pothole repair program, keep in mind that the team that does that also conducts spring cleanup. So now that that is complete, they're actually out and about this week. So weather depending, they will be out, you'll see them. They're also getting caught up with mowing because that also gets put by the wayside. That's the same team that does the street side entrances and stuff like that. So they're actually getting caught up on that as well. As far as the paving program, I'll have to get an actual start date. I'm not sure of when they're anticipating getting started on it. I know that they're trying to line everything up, make sure they're communicating with National Grid and also getting surveys of the sidewalks and that kind of stuff because anywhere that we go with a street that has a sidewalk, we have to make sure that the curbs are ADA appropriate according to DOT and they have to get replaced. If not, I know that they were going to try to jump into the areas that did not have any sidewalks first so that they can get started right away.
Okay. All right. Further questions, discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, ordinance 39 carries 6-0. Ordinance 40, an ordinance adding chapter 274 vehicles off-road to the code of the city of Troy to prohibit the illegal operation of off-road vehicles in the city. Councilmember Gully, Councilmember Ash McPherson, Councilmember Zaluski, and Council President Mantello. Is there a motion?
I can't motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Cummings. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Councilmember Zaluski seconds. Discussion. How about Councilmember Ash McPherson takes it away, bring us up to speed. What does this beauty do? And good work.
I would like to turn this over, let Jim start with this. Jim and I have been working on this for over a year, so I'd like to let Jim take it.
Council President, is that okay with your approval?
Absolutely. Councilmember Gully, thank you. Take it away.
Well, you know, this is not a cure-all. This just makes it compatible with other municipalities that are saying, you know, we have to find a way to kind of limit and curb that activity. For me, I was excited to mirror that legislation in our municipality because it's a start. It's not a cure-all. It doesn't help our police to catch these guys, but when they do, they'll have a hard time getting their equipment back, or they'll pay the fee for doing that. And I doubt they'll want to do that too many times. We're just trying to, you know, create a more comfortable, a safer neighborhood. And I think that Albany started and other municipalities followed because it makes sense to put an impound fee and create a financial burden to these people that are illegally riding on our streets beside the fines and tickets they might get. So for us, we're following the lead of Albany, but we're doing it because we really believe that this could be a benefit, and it's a start. And Councilwoman Kim Ash McPherson and I, this is not the only piece of this that we're working on, but we're continuing to work to find a way to limit the illegal riders. And this has nothing to do with the people who want to go up to a trail and ride on the hill. It's great to have that activity if they do it legally, but to go down Fifth Avenue at a brazen speed that puts others in danger, we figure we would at least, you know, make it hard for them to do it a second time if they're caught. So I'd be honored if everybody would follow our steps and help us with this, and let's move closer to making our city more comfortable.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Thank you. I just want to say that, you know, we've got quality of life issues here in Troy, and this is one of them that it's throughout our city. It's not just in Lansingburg. It's not just in District 2. It's not in District 4. It's in District 5. It's in District 6. It's all over that we're having these issues. And a lot of our constituents have been reaching out to us, you know, asking us to do something to stop what's going on. And if this is going to help curb the illegal activity, then this is something that we should do. I know I spoke with Councilman Zaluski a few weeks ago in regards to this, and he had said that he had spoken to the chief as well. And, you know, he was looking at doing this. So I'm pleased that, you know, we're all thinking along the same line of our constituents. And I'll echo what Councilman Gully said. I would hope that everybody would agree to join on with us on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Further discussion?
Yeah, Council President.
Yep, Councilmember Zaluski.
Yeah, so first of all, I do want to thank Councilpersons Gully and Ash McPherson. We did have a phone conversation about this. I didn't realize that you had started on this probably many months before you know, I did. I emailed Chief Owens to talk about it because I saw what Albany had done and Schenectady was considering doing. I don't know if Schenectady has passed theirs yet or not. I think they did though, right? Yeah, they did. Yeah, but it makes sense. You know, we've all gotten complaints across the city. I know in my district, especially in South Troy, in the alleys, we've had you know, these things being driven down the alleys. It's dangerous. You know, not only for the public and people that might be out, you know, in the alleys or in our streets, but it's also dangerous for the people riding them. They may not realize that. They may think they're infallible, but they're not. And I've seen injuries from ATVs that are they're pretty extreme. Actually, a kid that I used to referee in ice hockey suffered a traumatic brain injury from an ATV accident. So I'm really happy to see that you know, we're doing this, and happy to join together to support it. I have a question. One of my constituents who lives in South Troy wanted to make sure that, and I'm just looking at some notes right now, wanted to make sure that residents are not penalized for using an ATV or UTV on their own private property for property maintenance, snow removal, agriculture, or construction. Apparently this is, they're now, I didn't know that you use ATVs for these purposes, but apparently they can be used for, for snow removal, agricultural purposes, or construction. So can we be assured, because I'm looking at section 274-2B, no person shall operate an off-road vehicle on private property in the city of Troy unless such person has first obtained the express consent of the owner or occupant of the property to operate the off-road vehicle on the property. There shall be a rebuttable presumption that the operator of an off-road vehicle on private property in the city of Troy lacks consent to operate the off-road vehicle on private property. So I think I'm struggling with that, because if someone is using an ATV to plow their own driveway or their sidewalk, or they're using it to do some type of construction work on their own private property, I don't want to outlaw that use. So I'm going to leave it there and see if we can have a discussion on that, and if there needs to be a modification. I don't know if the chief has an answer to that, or
I would think Rick.
Council President.
Yeah, Council Member Gully, and then maybe our Corp Counsel. I kind of read it where they would be able to if it's registered. Council Member Gully.
Councilman Zaluski, very good question. It is answered in here at the point where it says no person shall operate an off-road vehicle on private property in the city of Troy unless such person has first obtained the express consent of the owner or occupant of the property. If they own the property and they give themselves permission to use their ATV on there, they're safe.
Yep. So if they own the property and it's their ATV, no issue whatsoever. And Rick, you concur with that?
I do.
Okay, that's easy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Real quick, I spoke to the chief about this also a while back, and spoke to my nephew, Nikki, and we all know enforcement is the key here. And, we can put laws on the books, we can raise fines, but they're only as good as the enforcement. We've all seen in all of our neighborhoods, as Councilmember Ashley McPherson states, it's rampant. It's starting, the warm weather's upon us. I saw a guy the other day, literally 15th and Hoosick, just flying down the street doing wheelies. It's unacceptable, and as we all know, it's unsafe for not only residents, motorists, children, you name it, but also our police who are trying to catch these guys. And, I think the challenge is the whole enforcement. I think Councilmember Gully, what really separates us from Schenectady and Albany is our community police efforts that are going to dig deep and go into the neighborhoods shortly. Because what I hope to see is actually be proactive in our neighborhoods, get some of the folks to rat on some of these ATV users. They know who they are. They know who the illegal violators are in the neighborhood. They know where they're being stored. And I truly believe that with that intel, with folks actually communicating with our community police officers, talking to them, building relationships, that's going to be a huge difference in our neighborhoods to get folks to actually step up to the plate and talk to our community police officers and other officers about these violators. So I think the message is clear. We're going to hit you hard with $3 grand, but we're also going to hit you hard in the neighborhood with the intel, with the community police officers who are going to be grassroots, talking to the neighbors, and people aren't going to be so hesitant to come forward, hopefully, with the tips to actually turn these people in. So let's hope it works. And Chief, keep us posted, as this moves along. And Councilmember Steele.
Yes, thank you. And thanks everybody for allowing me to zoom out to another Zoom quickly. I want to thank everyone with this issue. I was really late to the table on this, but it's clearly something that I asked to have happen. And it brings to mind that it might be better if we communicated with each other a little better. on something like this. And when we do have this kind of an idea, perhaps we could share that so that we aren't duplicating efforts. It would be a nice example of bipartisan cooperation. So I'm certainly supporting this. It's definitely needed, and clearly we all wanted to do it, but you guys beat us out, and that's great.
Council President,
Councilmember Gully.
Councilwoman Steele, we all did do it together. It was all the conversations that we did have. And it doesn't matter who puts the paper on the table. We can all sign on as co-sponsor, and we do it in a bipartisan manner because we all feel the same way. And I think that we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully. Any further discussion? Chief, what do you think? I think it's a step in the right direction. As you know, I've been saying, it's a real challenge.
Absolutely, and enforcement is the biggest challenge, the biggest obstacle. But if it serves as a deterrent effect, why not? I mean, if we only get 1 or 2 violators and it has an impact, then it's worth it. So we'll have to see. I don't know the effect it will have, but I'm hoping it's going to be a deterrent to at least some people that might give them pause before they start driving on city streets, and maybe they go onto trails or elsewhere outside the city.
Hope so. Send some message.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
I don't know if this is for the chief or for Monica, but it seems like it could be good to follow this up with some signage processes, whether in alleys that we know have been problems or parks or areas that we've been having challenges with. Do you have any existing plans, or what do you think about the idea of adding some signage, just warning people that they'd be liable for these sorts of fines if they get caught?
If that question's for me, I'll answer first, and then the deputy mayor can answer. I don't know. I guess it's good to always try to share information, but for the people, first of all, it's pretty widespread, so I don't know how many signs we're going to post. But if you think about it, we have stop signs on almost every intersection. It's not controlled by a traffic signal, so people are going to disobey traffic signals. I don't know if they're going to follow a sign, but I guess it's part of an information or education campaign. It can't hurt. I just don't know how many signs we would need to blanket the city because it is pretty widespread.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we need to blanket it. I just think, a deterrent isn't helpful if it's just legislation on the paper. It's most helpful when we let people know that it's happening. So hopefully there's some news coverage of us passing this next month. But then beyond that, if there are some key places, certainly, for example, in South Troy down by the water plant, I know is an area where people like to gather, where we might be able to put some signs up in a place where they'd notice and be able to be informed that if they come on the city streets, they're liable for significantly more damages than before.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. Okay, further discussion, questions? All right, Ordinance 40, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Ordinance 40 carries 7-0. We're going to go back to Ordinance 38, Ordinance amending the special revenue budget to accept a New York State Homeland Security grant for the purpose of purchasing radios and related equipment. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. I thought first we'll let the chief give an overview of the grant and maybe hopefully address some of maybe the misinformation out there. Thank you.
Thank you. This grant comes from a state Homeland Security grant program that has been in place for many years. There's been some refocusing and title changes to the particular grant. So this one in particular is a law enforcement terrorism prevention program, but there's been a broader state Homeland Security program. It even goes back even farther to shortly after September 11th, when there was the Urban Area Security Initiative. Back then there was Tier 1 UASCs and Tier 2. Tier 1 would be like, LA, New York City, but there were 60 some odd Tier 2 UASCs. The Albany metropolitan region, so Albany, Troy, Schenectady, and Albany County, Schenectady County, Rensselaer County were a tier 2 UASC. A long time ago, I forget all the years run together, but the Department of Homeland Security eliminated the tier 2 UASCs or reduced the total number. But collectively, the 3 cities and 3 counties had done so well. The state recognized our urban area working group, and they allowed us to continue to apply for grants as a urban area working group, as opposed to just grants going to individual counties. A lot of times on these grants, the county is the recipient, and sometimes it may not trickle down to the localities, cities, towns, but we've been very successful as a partnership for the urban area working group. So this particular grant application follows prior very similar grant applications. And so particular to the equipment involved in this one, there's computer equipment for remote access. Part of that is going to be for conducting risk assessments of locations. Also for remote access for particularly like tablets and wireless-based equipment for our field intelligence officers, our SROs who are deployed in the school. I guess I should back up a little bit and say that while the focus of a lot of the grant fund is terrorism prevention, it's dual use. And so the grants and the funds that we receive can purchase equipment, provide for training, provide for overtime, and it allows us to have a response to all hazards. So not simply terrorism related events, but certainly any hazard that could affect our community. In this, there is radio communications equipment. It's interoperable radio equipment. I can speak to our radio system. I dealt with that in my prior roles. We currently have 2 systems. We have an old system that's actually past its useful life. It's no longer serviceable in terms of the vendor. We have an old 800 megahertz radio system. It's called EDAX. We've transitioned to a P25 trunked radio system. The fire department continues to use the police department's old UHF system that works better for their purposes. Within our radio system, in the past couple of years, we've been beginning to transition to our P25 system, and the equipment, the subscriber equipment, so those portable mobiles, console equipment, is much easier to allow for encryption. And I think there's 2 things. I think we want to talk about the grant itself, and so I can do that. And then I think we could talk more broadly about voice and data encryption. Is there particular questions on the grant equipment, or should I talk more broadly about the encryption question?
Council President?
I apologize. I was on mute. Maybe I think first if the chief could talk about the encryption, and then we could take it from there if it's okay.
It sounded like you wanted to just cover any grant questions, then we go into encryption, but I can go whatever you want.
Sure, that's fine. Councilmember Cummings.
Great. Before we get into the encryption, I just wanted to check in on, you said interoperable, and my sense is that that's been a big push from Homeland Security, is to make sure that we can work across other municipalities, with other municipalities when they come for mutual aid, et cetera. Is that a big thrust of this? And then related to that, this is our system. How is it tied into the county system? And are there any degree to which further investing in it continues to tie us further into the county system, or is this our own system that would be operable on any system with any collaborators?
Yes, absolutely. Interoperability has been a priority, a long-time priority. Many agencies and many disciplines, so across law enforcement, fire, EMS, public works, public service, typically used to have a standalone radio system. It did not interface well with others. There have been different frequency bands that different municipalities have used. So there's VHF, UHF, 800, 700. And so a lot of the equipment now is compatible either at the radio level. So some radios are multi-band, they can talk on different frequencies, or it could be connected at the system level. So there are core sites, those are the radio sites, and they can be connected by leased lines, they can be connected by microwave, and so they tie systems together. Years ago, the state looked at doing a statewide wireless radio system and data network. it kind of became impossible for them to build out. So one of the things that both the state and the federal government have supported is a concept of system of systems. So where municipalities build out their system, then they join the systems together. And so that's where we're at. So we have a standalone system for the city of Troy. We actually have two systems, like I mentioned. We have the EDEX, the old EDEX system, which will eventually go away. And then the 800 trunk system that interfaces with the county, Rensselaer County. It also interfaces with adjoining counties that have transitioned to 800 trunk systems. And so we have that interoperability both at times, if it's the same frequency band, 800, we have it at the radio level for all users. But then we have certain units that are assigned multiband radios that can talk across different frequencies. And then at the system level, we have shared talk groups on each other's systems. Could you repeat the second piece?
Just to what degree, if any, does it tie us further to our existing 911 center at the county, or is it totally separate from that?
It's completely interfaced with our dispatch center. It also interfaces with the Rensselaer County system, their radio system. So for the sheriff's department and other users on that system, we can interface.
Okay. And then, but I know we haven't been talking about it recently. Hopefully things get better going forward, but certainly that the cost of that 911 operations center has been a concern for the council for a while. Should we eventually create a partnership with other municipalities in the area or something else? Could it, I assume it could also interface with any other 911 operations center?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Good. Good question, Councilmember Cummings. On the grant, before we get into the encrypted, did anyone have questions? Okay, Chief, you want to hit that? Thank you.
Sure. So on the question of encryption, this is something that we as a department have looked to implement for years. Now that we are transitioning to our P25 system, it's easier to do. The old equipment, some of it could not be upgraded for encryption, or it was very cost prohibitive. So years ago, we only had certain units or certain assignments had radio equipment that was capable of encryption. Our concern with encryption is that the police department, I think we have an obligation. I know we have an obligation to protect privacy and to ensure that information that we gather through our law enforcement activities is protected. And so, for example, and I'll try to address some of the questions raised by some of the speakers earlier, but just in terms of on our daily basis, on our patrol talk groups. So our system is a trunk system. So we have talk groups. It doesn't really go by channels anymore or frequencies per se. It's identified by talk groups. So on our patrol talk group, which is our primary dispatch talk group, every single day throughout the day, personally identifiable information is going across the airwaves. And so previously, people with scanners, it took a little bit of sophistication to program scanners, or way back in the day, there was actually crystals and you could listen in on that. Now with the advent years ago of apps that can do real-time monitoring, police, not just police, but any public safety radio systems. So every day we're sharing personally identifiable information on over the radio. So that's, date of birth, social security numbers, addresses, driver's records. We could be transmitting or receiving protected health information, depending on the nature of the call. And certainly just more broadly, sensitive information about people's homes and properties, conditions of the property, whether there are lawfully possessed firearms in the property, whether there's a vacation watch, calls for an unattended death at an address. And so this information is not only could be heard real time by people that can scan, if you will, the scanner or use the app, but it also could be shared almost instantaneously with others, especially through social media. And so I can think back myself personally, but there's multiple situations where we've encountered people, not only in the old days with scanners, but certainly with the app. There was a burglary in progress call on Grant Street a couple years back. I happened to be nearby, stopped out with what was turned out to be the suspect. And as I'm exiting the car, calling out to dispatch on the radio, not 2 or 3 seconds later, I'm hearing that rebroadcast of my radio message because the person was carrying a cell phone with that app. So I understand that the point of the question that was raised about trust and transparency, but again, I think we have an obligation to protect sensitive information. Just because we gather it or share it doesn't mean everybody has a need to know immediately at the time that it's occurring. And I think we may also be losing the sight of criminals and nefarious actors can use this information real time to evade the police or to harm others. Everything otherwise that we have, our MDTs, our cell phones, our body cameras, they're all encrypted, whether it's data or voice, it's encrypted and it's retrievable. Certainly it's recorded, but I think it's important for the police department to protect information, but also to protect officers in their response to incidents, because that's going to protect the public. A couple of things that were mentioned about the grant itself is that we should use it for, SCBA or for the fire department. Is this a legitimate need? The radio encryption has already occurred on some talk groups. We're continuing to build that out within our current system. This grant is allowing for additional subscriber equipment. This grant is not per se for encryption, but it's a law enforcement specific grant. So we wouldn't have the option to spend it on, for example, the fire department or another city department. And yes, this is a lesson learned from civil unrest throughout the past year that, again, nefarious actors, criminal elements were using monitoring apps, real-time police information to change their tactics, to change their locations, or to avoid police detection. So that is a relevant factor. Although in our case, I think that's relatively low on our concerns in terms of the civil unrest piece, but definitely the criminal element. We've had cases where, while a person committing a crime may not be actively monitoring, although certainly some do, sometimes family members or friends will be hearing real time and be able to relay information about where the police are. The concern about the Red Cross and responders, volunteers, if they were to work through the Rensselaer County CERT team, they could be vetted and they could have notifications of any natural hazards, fire scenes, things of that nature. Again, I think it's a concern about the confidentiality of what we share on the air. I mean, you can think back before, years ago, you could walk into DMV and you could request anybody's home address from their driver's license. The law was changed to protect that. I mean, we've seen rampant identity theft throughout the country. I've been a victim of it myself. I'm sure others on this meeting have had that happen. But every day we're sharing personal information on the radio, which is critical for us to share real time. But I don't know that the public, every member of the public has a need to know that immediately and at the time that's occurring. Again, as I said, our transmissions are retrievable, they're recorded. So if there's concerns about that, hopefully that alleviates that. Any particular questions?
I'm sure others have questions. Chief, great run through. I really appreciate how in-depth and addressing some of the information questions many folks had. Any further questions, discussion?
Council President?
Yep, Councilmember Cummings.
Let's see. First question is just, I think you covered this, but just to clarify, all radio communication currently, whether encrypted or not, and into the future, is recorded. Is that correct?
So we have the two systems. So on the old system, the talk groups that are through the 911 center are recorded at the 911 center. We also have a backup recording at the station. The new system, the P25 system, it's not new. It's actually been in place for a couple of years now. We're just finally able to start rolling things out. Is recorded both at the site, so the radio site itself, but also the talk groups that go through the Rensselaer County Dispatch Center are recorded there as well.
Okay. And then what is the current policy with regard to how long that's kept, and how, I assume folks can access it through FOIA if it's a valid reason, but then beyond that, Discovery and IA, all theoretically all have access? What is it? And then, yeah, how long, and am I right that all those groups theoretically have access?
So yeah, so through all those means, through FOIL, Discovery, for internal inspection services purposes, we can access that information. It follows the records retention policy. I don't have the particular time. I think most go back for years. In terms of where it's recorded at Rensselaer County, that would follow their policy. But at our system, we have recordings going back years.
Okay. And then I'm sort of curious about your thoughts on the public interest in, I don't know that we have what used to exist around, a newspaper man with a scanner following along. But I think there is some value in media having access to close to real-time information. Is there a process for that, and what would it be?
Absolutely, thank you. I missed that point in my notes. So we've looked at a couple options to allow for, absolutely, for the media to have that real-time information through their news desk so they can report it to the public. But what we don't want is information that goes out there, and once it goes out over the airwaves, it can be retransmitted by anyone. So we looked at a couple technological options. We were looking at some iPads or iPhone applications that would be controlled, so we would know like who has them and where they are for the media. We've also looked at assigning actual physical subscriber equipment, so a radio, whether it's a desktop station or a portable, that they would have access to it. And so that's absolutely something we want to make sure Credential Media continues to have that real-time access. That's important for, again, not only the trust piece, but also for public safety. They can put out information about road closures or fire scenes or any other thing that might be important for people to have. The difficulty for us with radio transmission is that once it's broadcast, it's broadcast. So
sure,
it's either all open or all encrypted. And so if we leave it all open, now anybody, good or bad, or for good purposes or bad purposes, if we don't want to say that people are good or bad, can use that information immediately, or they could retransmit it, however they do that, whether it's a phone call, social media, whether they link it to something online that's going to rebroadcast the information. And so that's the balance we're trying to strike. We want to ensure that media continues to have access, and that is something we will build into this.
Have you seen other areas or other best practices for sort of more modern public information practices around it? I know one of the, anytime I hear sirens or there's a helicopter overhead, certainly the app suddenly spikes in the number of listeners. Is there a process to, rather than having people make them go listen to the app and try to decode your scanner signals, have someone at the station be tweeting, we're responding to this at this location, less personal and identifiable information, but more useful public information for folks to know what you're doing in real time?
Absolutely. And that's something we're struggling to try to figure out how to do. We don't have the luxury of having 24/7 PIOs. Obviously, Deputy Chief DeWolf does a phenomenal job. Captain Barker does a phenomenal job, but we don't have that complete coverage yet with, for example, our Twitter page or our Twitter website, whatever you call it. I'm not very social media savvy, but yes, we want to figure out a way to do that. We also looked at one of the things I propose, and I have people trying to figure out, is there a way that we can, on our website or another way, just the call volume, somewhat anonymize it from an address, but put it to maybe a block or an intersection of what is occurring in. Because, so for example, through our CAD and RMS system, we can see down to detailed information and it maps out. We're trying to figure out, is there a way that somehow we can have like a real-time running call where it just shows what the call nature is, and generally within a block or so, or whatever distance we choose, where it can be. And we have not figured that piece out yet. So I fully agree with you. Like, I know there's people, friends of mine that listen to old school scanners, like actual scanners, or have the app and want that information. And we'd like to be able to have people hear that, but we're not able to do that and separate out the other concerns. So we're actively looking into options for that. One of the other things we want to do, again, doesn't give people real-time information, but I ask people to try to figure out. So we don't have like, if it's a television broadcast or whatever, they have people sitting there next to a button and they can censor information. So if a call goes out about traffic stop, we could let the traffic stop information be heard, but we could like beep out the address, the driver's license information, date of birth, things like that. There's no way for us to do that. But I was asking the question, if there's a way, and I think it's going to be super staffing intensive, if, you know, the next day, so the next 24-hour period, if we have like a rolling radio broadcast, but somebody sits there and goes through that and, you know, just an audible tone or some way to just strike out that person identifiable information or home addresses, things like that. I think it's too pie in the sky right now, but I'd love to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to relatively real time get broad information out of the dispatch center or out of whatever system you have to do that would certainly be helpful. And then I don't know if it's constant monitoring or if it's IA or the PORB might be able to do sort of spot checks where they can listen in. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. And certainly access by the media is helpful. Let's see, my last question for now, just to talk a little bit about the experience last summer around the large rally for Black Lives. You know, I don't know a lot about what was going on. Certainly I have friends who were sort of on the ground security team and helping coordinate activities for the rally. And I know that it was helpful for some of them to be able to listen as, you know, basically as a means of coordination for to know like, oh, you know, there's a group of militiamen over there. Let's direct people away from those folks or whatever. And so, you know, I think there can be value even in those large events to have public radio access so that everyone's on the same page with regard to how the response is going. And I think it helps. One of the things we saw in other places certainly was that when there's more mystery and more lack of communication, there's more mistrust and more opportunity for things to escalate or get violent. And I think, you know, obviously everyone did a great job last summer keeping it peaceful. And I think part of that was because of that ability to sort of have open communication.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, communication is always a good thing. I mean, we reach out to organizers. We didn't have a lot of luck prior to the event, but certainly we had officers out and about and we shared information. I agree with you. I'd love to be able to share information in another format. I don't know that detailed information concerning people's private information, but also active police tactics. And again, like I said, that's lower on the priority in terms of Troy, city of Troy, the civil unrest piece. Sure. But that is a lesson learned across the country as far as, again, if the concern is you're worried about, you mentioned militia or any other bad actors, they would equally have that information to be able to respond or counterattack or do whatever they're going to do with the information against the police. But I do agree with you. We need to figure out a better way to share more generalized information quickly to the public, and it's something we continue to work on.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. Councilmember Steele.
Yes, thank you, Chief. I'm just trying to put these pieces together. So the grant is to further the encryption efforts of the police department?
I guess it depends on how you look at it. So encrypting the talk groups on our old system was not really possible. We did have a few, but mainly once we transitioned to the new system, we began the encryption process over the past couple of years for certain talk groups. The equipment purchased from the grant will be capable of encryption. So the grant itself is not necessarily to encrypt our system, but the radio equipment purchased from the grant will work on our encrypted system. So the grant is not driving the encryption, if that's the question.
Okay, so some of the talk groups are currently encrypted, correct?
Correct.
And the new equipment will allow encryption. So I'm assuming that you're going to expand the encryption, or I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're getting this equipment. Am I understanding correctly?
The current equipment that we have, we've already continued to expand the encryption. We're not fully transitioned over to our new system. We actually built a second site so that we have 2 sites covering the city. That gives us better in-building coverage. And so once we make that full transition to we bring that second site fully online, all the talk groups have been programmed to be encrypted.
And that will be using the software that is being purchased by this grant? No.
No.
Okay. I thought that the grant calls for software.
There's definitely computer equipment and software. Some of that is network-based for our IT network. A main concern, as we've seen, is things on the computer network, so the IT systems, ransomware attacks, things like that. So we had a separate grant for cyber protection. This is also going to be used for some of that network equipment. For the records management system, that budget line number 4, that's again tablets for remote access. Line 3, if you're talking about the credentialing equipment, that is for ID badging. We want to incorporate, potentially we're looking into incorporating RFID that we use for card access to police buildings and interior of the building to be embedded in our IDs. So that's something we're looking at with that. So that credentialing is not connected to the radio system at all, if that was the question earlier.
Okay. Well, it looks to me like number 1, compute. So you're saying the computer hardware, software, and related items is not the radio and the software for encrypting those radios?
Correct. So budget line 1, that computer hardware, that is again for primarily tablets and cellular hotspots to use for risk assessments. So when we send people out prior to an event or prior to an area that we have concerns, they can have a tablet that works over the wireless. It's not connected to the radio system at all. It actually uses commercial cellular, which commercial cellular is encrypted, but that's independent. It's a commercial carrier.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No problem. Thanks, Councilmember Steele. Thank you, Chief. Further questions? Yep.
Sure. Council President?
Yep, Councilmember Zaluski, then we'll go back to Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, so I want to raise the 2 scenarios, and I think you've already addressed it, Chief, but I'm gonna bring it up again. One of our speakers tonight talked about these 2 scenarios. One is what I'll call the citizen journalist. In this case, Sidewinder, Jeff is all over the city, every emergency that occurs, certainly every fire scene. If there's a shooting, he's pretty much everywhere, and he's able to do that by listening to the scanner. He's not doing anything nefarious. I mean, he's just documenting each emergency as he sees it, taking photos, video, whatever. So Jeff, as a citizen journalist, if I can call him that, I don't know, what else to call that, but how would he be able to continue what is effectively, I don't know if it's his business, I don't think he makes money from it, but it's his line of work. It's something that he loves doing. He's dedicated himself to doing that. And then secondly, the citizen emergency volunteer, in this case, someone like Rhea, who will show up at a fire to help coordinate resources where in some cases the Red Cross is falling short, or just in general, there's chaos. Obviously, our firefighters, they are focused on fighting the fire and saving lives. They're not necessarily focused on giving water bottles out to fire victims, or trying to help them find housing, et cetera. So we've got these two classes, and again, there's probably more, but at least right here we have these two examples of a citizen journalist and a citizen emergency volunteer who will not be able to continue doing that if they don't have access to this data. So I guess my question is, how can we provide such access? With any type of encrypted communications, of course, it's all, I'm assuming this is public-private key based, like the SSH protocol or the SSL protocol, et cetera, et cetera. So, how can we, will there be a method that we can utilize so that someone like, Sidewinder or someone like RIA can sign up to continue doing what they do?
It's a good question. So for the two scenarios, the individual you mentioned, I'm not in any way suggesting that they're doing anything wrong with the information or not using it. The difficulty becomes is it's either open or encrypted. And so how do we figure that piece out? So if the categorization of a citizen journalist, I don't know what that looks like. And that's why we were trying to figure out a way through credentialed media to make sure the media continues to have access. Again, it's that the need to know the level of detail on every transmission, I don't think is there even for people who are well-intended or for those volunteers, because it's all out there. You know what I mean? So while they may be listening to respond to a fire scene to assist people, which is great, that's highly encouraged, that's part of being a community. But every transmission all day long, all night long of the information is going out there. So kind of to go back to Councilmember Cummings, we need to get better at an alternate method to provide more generalized real-time information, but I guess detailed enough in time and place where if it makes sense for people to know, whether the residents, neighbors, volunteers that are going to the area, that they have enough to know where to go. Now, with that, I think there's a lot of, I guess, social media groups or social media connections that people have that share similar information, certainly not the detailed information that law enforcement has access to, but again, it might be enough to get that response going or to get them into the area to continue to do what they do, whether it's to photograph or to assist victims of a fire. In terms of fire scenes in particular, the fire department continues to have their own radio system. And so I won't speak for them. I don't know that they have plans to go encryption, but I think if you want to address that with Chief McMahon, I'm sure he'd be happy to cover that with you. But that's the tough part of the balancing act. How do we continue to have people that want to use information for good reasons, have real-time constant access to it, when alternately we have people that could use the information to harm others or to avoid law enforcement?
Right. I guess I think that's what we're all getting at, right? So if there's a way to vet residents who, want to use the information to do good. Obviously, you're right. We don't want to let detailed information into the hands of folks that want to do bad. I'm guessing that those types of folks won't sign up. And I guess what I'm envisioning is like a way to sign up, like even me as a city council person. For like years ago, when it first came out, I was fascinated with the scanner app on the phone, and I would listen to it. And then after a while, I said, there's too much going on. I can't keep up with this. I have to live my life. But I might be interested in, as a city official, understanding what's happening, especially if it's in my own district. Now, when the fire on 4th and Madison was in my district, it'd be wonderful if there was something that, for each the 6 of us that represent districts, if we could receive notifications of something happening within our own district so that we could show up to help out if we choose to.
And the at large.
Yes, I know. You can show up anywhere in the city, Carmela. But I understand, like, that requires a level of categorization or attribution of data where in the midst of an emergency. Of course, I understand people don't have the time to do that, right? But it's almost like tagging data so that you're the address when it's called out where there's a fire or, where there's, a potential suicide happening, where, police officers might be going down, maybe some counselors or whatever. That all that information, I know it's being called out verbally, but if there's a way to somehow get that so that it's, because I think that's what we're talking about when you're saying, the Troy PD Twitter feed or some type of, app that links to this data that not necessarily has to have the verbal announcements and all the details that the police officers are receiving, but something that gives at least metadata about the situation. Maybe it's an address, number of people involved, maybe a severity code or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making this up on the fly, but we really do need some type of separate channel. Like if we're going to encrypt everything such that none of our residents, well-intentioned residents, can have access to what's happening, at least something that because I've often said that, like as a council person, I really would like more information about what's going. And Chief, because I send you the emails like, hey, why were a resident said that there were officers in the cemetery with flashlights. What's going on? It sounds weird. And then, they did an incredible service. We had someone that was contemplating suicide, and the officers, talked that person down and got them the help they needed. No one will ever, I didn't know that until I asked you, and our residents wouldn't know, that was a positive outcome. But, something that would keep elected officials and other people that should know, such as, our volunteers, something that allows people to understand what's happening. I think that would be, I want to think through that and whether that's a separate channel of communication or whether it's an encoding of the data, or whether we do have to dedicate, some personnel to actually doing that. I want to make that an issue. Like, I think we want to keep that at the forefront of this.
You're absolutely right. And you have a far better understanding of data and computer systems than I do. But even within the existing CAD and RMS system, we're trying to figure out ways for even our members, command staff in particular, to get real-time notifications. Because as you just mentioned, an active scene, you're handling whatever's happening in front of you, and you don't always have time to make these additional notifications, sometimes within the police department, but certainly externally to the public or media. So how we figure that out. But in your example that you mentioned, a suicide. So in order, if the radio transmission is going out about this, a lot of times person identifiable information is going to be given out. So in order for us to leave the radio system unencrypted and everyone can hear that, I don't know that. So just in this circumstance, I'm not even talking about criminal activity, but I don't know that the public has a right to know that that person, that individual who's identifiable, was in that crisis situation. So yes, while it might be helpful to know that the police are on the scene and they're handling a particular call, that's good. But we don't have a way right now to separate detailed information from generic information over our voice radio system. And so that's a difficulty. And I think we've been a little bit behind in correcting this problem. And as I said, this has been something we've been trying to figure out for the last couple of years as we've rolled out the new system, we've built it out. We're at a point now where we can do that. And so I'm glad this conversation came up in the context of the grant. The grant is not in particular for encrypted radios. Again, the radio equipment bought on the grant is capable of working on an encrypted system, but the grant is not driving that. I just think we have an obligation to protect people's privacy. And we're not doing that right now with some of the information that's being shared. It's very personal, sensitive information a lot of times. But you're absolutely right. The public has a right to know in general. So again, we're going to try to make sure that the media, the credentialed media, has that real-time full access so they can do their reporting and their journalistic investigations. But even as you mentioned, as a city official or a council person, for you to have access to hear that there was a fire on 4th Street, necessarily you're going to have access to every transmission that includes all those other factors. And again, I'm not now talking about the people who are doing something wrong. I think we can all agree we don't want the criminals to have real-time information about police activities, locations, information about potential victims. And we responded to a domestic violence case, and the address goes out, the person's name goes out, and we check for an order of protection. Well, now in anywhere in the ether world where people are hearing that address is now known. So whether it's known to a a person who's going to act bad, or it's streamed to others who can then share that information. I think I'm bouncing between the two, so I'll try to refocus on the people that are well-intended. I think allowing the media to continue to have real-time access will be helpful to a degree. On the fire department side, I don't know if they have any plans to go encrypted, if that helps. But then also we need to have a much more robust, whether it's Twitter or some other mechanism, to get that generalized information about what the incident is, so people have an overall awareness without knowing the level of detail of who's involved, maybe the specific address or what, the nature of the complaint is, beyond something broad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that answer. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It has to do with the separation of detail versus what I call metadata, just general enough information to allow concerned residents who want to volunteer, whether they're volunteering to document or volunteering to coordinate resources, but allowing them to continue to participate, because we do want their participation. But also, you're right, not divulging details that could compromise an investigation or could compromise a person who, if I tragically decided that I was going to try and kill myself, I probably wouldn't want that out over the airwaves. I'd want to get talked down and get my life back together, and not have it like a public issue. But yeah, it's an interesting it's an interesting issue. I mean, look, everything we do nowadays is encrypted. Like, encryption itself is not like a boogeyman. What we're doing right now is encrypted. It's a public meeting, so of course it's broadcast, but all these communications are encrypted. Every website we go to nowadays is pretty much encrypted. That's just a fact of where things have headed. But that being said, I don't want encryption to be like the bad word, but it's in terms of how do we allow residents, volunteers to continue doing what they do. That's really the bottom line for me.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. That information sharing piece is key, but how and what we share, I think, is the sticking point. And that's why it forces us into that encrypted versus unencrypted. Particular to the volunteers, again, I think the Rensselaer County has a great CERT team. People volunteer through that. Maybe there's a vetting process and a notification process where they get real-time alerts about incidents that they may be called and asked to respond to. So that could be an option. And again, we'll have to work harder on our real-time Twitter feed or whatever format that looks like. And the credentialed media is going to continue to have access.
Chair?
Okay, Councilmember Cummings.
Great. Just a couple follow-ups. I think the core here, it sounds like we have good ideas about how to get the public back to the things that they have a right and a need to have access to, but not necessarily the concrete plan to make that happen. I'm wondering sort of what is possible in the next week before we pass this finally at the next meeting on your end to solidify some of that. And then what should we maybe call a public safety meeting next month about with regard to this? So, in particular, what's it going to take to have a Twitter feed that either directly pulls from the 911 dispatch data and anonymizes it somehow, or aggregates it somehow, or a staff member who's able to relatively real-time tweet about what calls people are on? And then what is the process for media organizations? And can we open up that process to independent media or other actors that go through a process and a background check or whatever it is on your end, but can there be a process for non-accredited media to do that? Certainly, I think right now, obviously, there are, in absence of an official Twitter account letting people know what's happening, there are several non-official Twitter accounts and social media organizations that are providing a real service for folks to know when there's something going on that could affect traffic or could affect, just what's going on in their neighborhood. And so if we don't have a plan right away to fully replace that, certainly need a plan to allow folks who who go through a vetting process to be able to provide that for. It sounds like there are volunteers that are providing that right now. So yeah, question is, are we using those volunteers or are we doing it in-house? But it needs to be one. So yeah, what do you think about sort of timeline for getting more clarity on that before next week versus into the future?
Thank you.
In terms of by next week, I don't know that there's any, we haven't found any direct app or interface that's going to take CAD RMS information and be able to import that or in any way interface with Twitter or some other public format. So I couldn't give you a time frame on that. In terms of,
have you reached out to the vendor on that?
Hey,
What's that?
Chief. Hey,
Yeah.
Chief, could
Sorry.
I make a suggestion on this maybe? I was looking through the whole contract, which is quite lengthy. But the contractor does submit quarterly reports. Perhaps maybe, putting something that Councilmember Cummings is asking for in one of the reporting might make sense.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be helpful. The progress reports, DHSES includes their metrics in there. I don't know that they would be tracking this as a metric. It's more for, are the funds properly expended? Is training complete? Things like that. So I don't know, because in this case, we're the grantee, so we're receiving the award.
Right.
I don't know that
I don't know.
DHS is going to track that.
So are you asking for the radio being real tweets, Councilmember Cummings, like live tweets? I guess maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the ideal would be every call that goes out gets a tweet with some level, whatever is the appropriate level of specificity. Obviously, that can get complicated if it's customized, but I don't know what the data streams you have are that may be able to do that. It sounds theoretically doable. I'm dangerous to programmers because I know what's possible, but not how much effort it'll take to do it. Yeah, I don't know what's possible. Certainly, I think if you reach out to the vendor, I don't know if it would have to be in partnership with the county because they operate the dispatch or the 911 at least. But yeah, certainly my ideal would be, yeah, a tweet goes out with, police are responding to X type of call in this neighborhood, or, if there's a fire on this block of this street at this time. And that can be relatively real time and more specific in its location. Those are the kind of things that, there's different levels of currently there's a Twitter account that tweets out, probably not everything, but certainly a fair amount of what the police are up to. And obviously Sidewinder that covers the larger events. So yeah, certainly I think it'd be good to have a process internally for basically replacing it, making it so that when someone sees lights, they can see what's going on in their neighborhood. And know how to respond, right? If there's an active search for an armed person, they'll be able to know to stay in their house. If it's something else, maybe that information can be very useful for folks to know what they should be doing in a particular situation. And so I think we do need a more specific plan about how to do that. And then, yeah, also a more specific plan about.
Would you see this grant? I think we're commingling a number of issues.
Certainly, and I always support getting money. I think the grant is helpful, but it certainly has brought up an issue that we do need to make sure is addressed, right? We're the power of the purse, and this is when we're funding something is the main opportunity we have to make sure the relevant issues are thought about and covered. And so unless there's a strong commitment to come back later with a more detailed, meant to have another process to do this. Otherwise, this funding process is the only process we currently have to have this conversation.
I'm just saying, I don't think the radios are, I understand what you're saying, but we're bringing a ton of issues, in terms of what the grant is funding. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I was just going to respond
I wasn't done.
as far as Councilman Cummings was saying for tweeting. Not everybody tweets, but I do know I have a security system. And when something happens in my community or anywhere in Troy or wherever it goes, it alerts me something is going on. So there's another alternative somebody could have as a security system that they may have or whatnot. But I think, there's a lot that was discussed on this, and this is for a grant for other things, not, from my understanding, not specifically to encrypt. So I don't know if we want to take a vote on this, or if we still want.
I guess
if we're good.
The core question I had on that is, should this grant get approved, which I assume it will, how long until most police communication is encrypted?
Chief?
Sorry, I thought I still on mute. So that process has been ongoing for years, and independent of this grant, we're continuing to move forward with that, and it's very likely within the next, I don't know, I'll say a few weeks to a month or so, that we're ready to transition fully to the new system. So this has been ongoing. I know we talked about it in some other formats. Maybe it wasn't as public, or in cases of certain individuals, they weren't aware of it. But I'm happy to discuss it in any format or forum or conversations you want to have about it. I'd be happy to continue that.
Okay. Sounds like I'm wearing my colleagues' patience thin, so we'll continue this conversation at a future meeting. But certainly, if you can get any more details about the media and about the public information process for next week, that would be a helpful start.
Council President.
Good discussion. Councilmember Gully.
Councilman Cummings, with your contact with RPI and the technologically enhanced people they have up there, maybe you could do some research to find out what the availability would be for programs on there, whether it be a mobile app or maybe be a key line to the media, because you certainly would have people that you're around, like you said. You could torture a programmer. Well, put some effort in. Let's get some ideas there. I think that for myself, most times, if I hear a siren, I can pop on a Facebook, and within a few minutes, somebody's going to be out there saying, this is what's happening, this is there. And I know that's not always accurate, but I think there's information shared, and I'd like to get away from some of the misinformation. So I like the idea. I just don't think it applies to this legislation, but I like your idea moving forward, that there should be some sort of on-point, real-time, not so depthful information put out, nothing personal, but at least an actuary to tell what's happening. So maybe we could all work at that and find a cure, but I think tonight we'll pass that on this legislation.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
What is a technologically enhanced person, and why are they gathering at RPI? I'm just kidding.
Well, let me tell you, anytime I have a question, if I find somebody from RPI, I usually can get it answered. So that's my idea.
I just like that term, technologically enhanced person. I love it.
Just remember, you heard it here first.
Advanced person, tap. Okay, Councilmember Steele.
Just to clarify a couple things, the county CERT is not functioning at the moment, so we're grateful to the volunteers in Troy. Maybe we ought to look to other communities to see how they're solving these issues. Perhaps you've done that. But I think this, again, brings up the point that we need to do a better job communicating throughout the city. If Sidewinder knows about it, every member of the council should be knowing about it. So something is broken down somewhere along the way here. I agree that the grant is one thing. but I think it's interesting that it's taken over a year or more for us, and I don't think we even now have a body camera policy, but somehow we can move forward with encryption without any policy that at least has been made public to us. So I really think it's so important that we work at better communication and transparency. And it's been a great discussion tonight, and I thank those who spoke. They raised some very good issues, and I hope that we do not drop the ball on this, that we stay moving forward to protect privacy, but also to allow important information within the community to be shared. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Steele. And we all know communication is key to everything. And if we really want to go in depth, how long have I been asking for an SMS or an email system that schools have, that so many organizations have, where you get an email, you get a phone call, you get a text, you sign up for it, boom, boom, boom. The city should have that. And certainly the police can dovetail off something like that. But anyhow, I'm going to put this to a vote unless there are any other questions for the chief. Thank you very much, Chief, for going into detail on a number of the issues. Thank you. Good discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Ordinance. My gosh, I apologize. Ordinance 39. 38. Ordinance 38 carries 7-0. Ordinance 41 has been withdrawn. And we'll head over to Ordinance 42. Ordinance amending the 2021 general fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. On the discussion, I did send an email. I'm not sure, Andy, if you did receive it, but the aid to municipalities, it's not AIDE. An AIM is aid and incentive. Where is Andy? Andy. Hi, Andy. Did you get my email on that? It's AIM, the correct name for AIM, but aid at least. I think we can say aid to municipalities. I think that's fine, but I think we take the E off.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'll just make a motion to amend the ordinance to take off the E, and we'll just keep it aid to municipalities. I'll make a motion to amend. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Zaluski on the amendment to just take the E off aid. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the amendment carries 7-0 on the amended ordinance.
Actually, Councilmember Gully has left the room momentarily, so the vote.
Oh, where'd he go? He snuck out. Yep, he has. So 6-0. The amendment carries on the amended ordinance. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. Andy, this is our restored aid. Want to give a quick below by below here?
Sure. So if you look at the, I tried to give as much detail as to what this is doing in the memo and support, but it's accomplishing what I'm calling 3 different transactions at once. Number 3, the third is the easiest to explain. I went in chronological order of timing of years and then when the money came in. The 2021-22 state budget fully restored the AIM to the level that it was before the coronavirus. As we had discussed during the 2021 budget process, the budget had reduced aid to AIM to, we cut it 10% in the budget and used unassigned fund balance for that. At that time, we had said, if it comes out to be a less than 10% reduction, we would amend the budget and get rid of the appropriated unassigned fund balance. That's what's being done here. So this unassigned fund balance appropriation in the 2021 budget is proposed to be fully removed in this ordinance. As I discussed earlier tonight, the state has also released the 20% that was withheld from 2020's allotment. However, because that money was received after February 28th, 2021, it cannot be recorded back to the 2020 fiscal year. It must be recognized in 2021. It is a one-time revenue. It will not happen again, as we can see in this year's state budget. And from my understanding, there's no withholding or anything as of now going on. This ordinance, they released it in 2 blocks. They released 15 of the 20%. And I think it was March or early April. And then they just released the other 5% 2 weeks ago. This ordinance proposes taking the 15% amount that was released, which is approximately $1.8 million. It amends the general fund budget to fully remove the deferred pension costs that were proposed and adopted in the 2021 budget. We will not defer any future pension costs through this ordinance. There is a remaining balance after we remove the deferral of $885,000. I'm proposing creating a new account, a 9010-804, taking the $885,000 and paying off outstanding pension loans due to the New York State retirement system. The 5% release amounted to $614,000. That is part 2 of the ordinance. As part of that, the ordinance proposes removing the appropriation from the unemployment reserve of $90,000 that's in the 2021 budget. This would leave only the appropriation of $350,000 from the insurance reserve, and would then transfer $240,000 for the capital projects fund related to the 3rd phase of the Siemens project for the 110 streetlights. It's the smaller streetlight project, not the bigger component. And then the final financial piece would put $284,000 into the contingency account. But I will note that I would like to, if I want to look at the numbers in the 4th quarter, and if it is feasible, take that $284,000 and pay off more of the pension loans, because it is a one-time revenue. And I would like to continue to pay those off and get those down as far as we can this year.
Makes sense, Andy. Very nice job. Questions? Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Councilmember Cummings, are you with us? Hello? Okay.
Another 6-0 vote.
Yeah, another. We're just losing votes here and there. That's okay. Ordinance 42 carries 6-0. Ordinance 43, ordinance amending the 2021 Special Revenue Fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember McDermott. Steve Strikeman, you've been with us for so long. We have to ask you, what is the additional funding for Chazen? Is this yours? Monica?
I'm sorry, I'm here. It took me a minute to
Oh, it's
get
okay.
on.
It's okay.
The additional funding is, we're going to extend part of the Riverwalk area. So part of this was for the design of the Riverwalk component behind the hotel next to the Headley building. But now we're going to extend it a little bit further under the Hoosick Street Bridge. Deputy Mayor Krzyzewski and I met with the Department of Transportation. And we talked about what they were going to, so we wanted to design an enhancement there, and we are still working with Department of Transportation, I've got a meeting set up with them to see what part of the actual construction they may pick up in the future. But so this is just the construction documents for the extending the trail that way. And we've done a little bit more work in Riverfront Park as well, just looking at initially the Riverfront Park component was going, actually I should look at this as I'm talking. Initially the Riverfront Park component was just going to be the area near the entranceway out, and we've extended that a little bit. It was I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong part. So it was the project area 1 is the Marina North Boardwalk, which, sorry, but I was so listening to everything else, I wasn't prepared to talk when I came up.
Oh, it's okay.
They're basically, it's related to the additions for the Riverfront Park North, or the Riverwalk North behind the hotel, to do the construction documents there, and then to do construction documents as well for under the Hoosick Street Bridge.
Okay, sounds good. Monica, I saw you come on. Did you want to add anything?
No, you're good.
Okay, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0, yes, 7-0. Now I have to look twice. Ordinance 43 carries 7-0. Ordinance 44, ordinance authorizing and directing sales of city-owned real property by the proposal sale application method. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. We have quite a few proposals that we've received. Really looked like a good crop of properties. I know that the subcommittee met, and right before the meeting, I did receive a phone call regarding one of the properties that I'd like to ask about, and that being, I believe, 468 2nd Street.
Oh my God, that's the exact same one I'm going to ask about.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked, oh, beautiful. Okay. I looked at all the proposals, and they were like, my gosh, like 10 proposals, and all over the place, from 60K to, to 10 to 20. And the phone call I received, which may be the similar phone call my colleagues received, is from some Troy folks that put a bid in, and they intended to actually put, I believe, like 60K into it in their proposal and live in the house. So I guess the question is, why was the particular person chosen? And maybe you could give us a little skinny on that one, please. Anyone? Fielder? Okay.
Usually you ask Councilman Gully to surmise and one of the council members, but.
Yeah, does council member, I'm not sure if council member Cummings participate. I know council member Gully, you participate. I don't know if you recall this particular one. And I really thought Sharon would have been with us for these.
Sharon had the assessment grievances tonight, so she was at another conference. She could not So she did want to make sure for me to mention, if people do have questions, of course, you can call her at her office, and she should be able to attend the regular meeting. But she had the grievances tonight and could not attend.
Okay.
So, Council President,
Yep.
is this the one where a nearby neighbor wanted to buy it and invest in it? The one that you got reached out to, a woman?
Yeah, I don't know if she lives nearby, but her and her husband's name is on the proposal.
Yep.
And yeah, and
So,
yep.
So there was a lot of discussion on this property. There was, some of the bidders were phenomenal bidders that we've had great success with in the past. I think the piece about the individual that was selected was that she was going to be owner occupied. She was going to have her family do the work, and then they were going to occupy it as a family. And I think the other ones were actually looking at it as more investment properties, if I remember the proposals correctly. Jim, if that jogs your brain a little bit. But I will tell you this, it was a hard decision to make because we do know the abilities of the other two. I think it came down to 3 in the final decision making. And it's hard because you know who people are, but you also, one of the things and one of the goals that we've always taken upon all of this is if there's a possibility to actually get an owner occupant into a home within a neighborhood, that is so obviously something that we were looking to do.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
I cannot remember the day, but I can remember that we made the decision together, and I have notes, and if I could find them, I'd tell you what we decided, but I don't have them here. So I apologize to the council, but I know that day when we sat there, Councilman Cummings was on the phone, that we discussed this and we came up with this is the best scenario for that property.
Okay, Council President.
Councilmember Zaluski.
So, yeah, on this particular one, I was surprised. My understanding of 468 2nd Street is that the recommended awardee is saying that she'll purchase it for $20,000 and put $20,000 into it. Right. 20,000 is not going to get us anywhere on that property. That's my understanding. And I had a long conversation with former Councilwoman Lynn Kopka on this. And there's a resident who lives right across the street or right nearby there. I'm sorry, what? Third. Huh?
I think 3rd Street. I think you're right.
No, because you're probably talking about someone else.
Oh,
I didn't get a phone call from the resident, from one of the bidders, from one of the proposers. I spoke with, I went through this myself, and I'm like, dude, this one stands out a little bit to me. And then I called up Lynn Kopka to see if she knew Heather Mora, because Heather, as I understand it, Heather invested over $100,000 into the property that she's in right now, the 487 2nd Street. And her proposal, while low on the purchase price, she's going to propose to put $93,000 into it. I think she has a much better understanding of what it's going to take to get this property, back up to snuff again. 20,000 is probably not going to get us there. I think Ms. Hawkins is underestimating what it's going to take. That's my opinion. Either way, so it probably sounds like there's also another person who you're thinking of. Maybe it's Vince. I don't know, but I think we might want to strike this one for the time being and give it a greater review. That's my opinion on this.
I will second that motion to take out 468 2nd Street for now. There were so many bidders, and honestly, looking back at it, like you said, Councilmember Zaluski, I saw the monies that were proposed to put in it, and then I saw the 20K, and I'm like, I gotta go down there and actually look at the house, and it just stood out. And even before that call, and then when the call came, I totally agree with you. So I will second your motion to take out 111.44-7-33. Discussion on the amendment to take out that particular parcel?
Council President,
Yes.
then I would like to request that 3 other individuals take the time to review the other applications and make the selection, since Councilman Gully, Councilman Cummings, and myself were actually, and Steve Strikeman, we came upon that decision. So I think it would be beneficial to have other people make the other decision.
I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry, you lost me.
Well, we actually made the recommendation as a committee up to you. So if you're going to take that out and want somebody to look at other recommendations, then I think it would be best to actually switch up the committee so that there is, I mean, this was the recommendation we made. So if the council doesn't like that recommendation, then perhaps other council members can jump on the committee. I can't speak for the other 2 council members, but I know for myself, that was the recommendation we made.
So now you're saying shake up the committee because we're taking a property off of this? Or are you just saying on this property?
On this property.
Oh,
We
okay.
reviewed this property. Yeah, no, just for this property. It doesn't make sense for us to re-review it. We've already given you our decision.
Totally there. Yep. Further discussion?
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
if it does get removed and you do have to have 3 other members review them, I would suggest that you have someone from code there to talk about the properties and individuals, and because that always helps. They have a little insight as to where they've been and what they've seen, and it always helps to make good decisions that way.
Sounds good. Absolutely. And, remember, I mean, the subcommittee, yes, the 2 council members are part of the subcommittee, but you're also, council members. Obviously, you maybe felt strong about this, maybe you didn't. But at some point, you have to vote on it anyway. So, you are our reps on the subcommittee, but it doesn't mean that the council necessarily goes with all the subcommittee's recommendations, much like the last round, we actually changed, I believe, 2. So, with additional information. And so for me, this was just additional information. So, all right, further discussion, questions on the amendment to withdraw that particular proposal? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Cummings?
I don't think his sound is working, but
Okay.
he seems to be indicating no.
Okay, he's a no. All right, so
He said, don't strike now, review and amend later.
no, we're withdrawing that piece of property. There's a motion, second, a vote. So are you up or down? Okay, 5-2. The amendment carries. We'll wait on the amended ordinance until we discuss any other properties. Is there any other issues, questions, discussion? Okay, on the amended ordinance, all in favor? Or, I'm sorry, first I have to take a motion on the amended ordinance.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second on the amended? Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson, motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Discussion. Yep, discussion on the amended ordinance.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I guess my core concern here is, as I'm sure you saw, the building is in need of repair, and withdrawing it just means it's going to have to wait another 6 months for another proposal. Certainly if you want to review the proposals and opt for a local investor owner, which there were several very qualified investor owners, rather than an owner occupant, I think that's worth the process. But rather than striking it, do that work over the next week and figure out who to give it to and swap them out. If you strike it, then it's just going to have to wait till the next the next bidding process.
No, if we withdraw it, there is a finance on obviously the Thursday. I plan to call finance before that special. So
between now and this Thursday, you're going to create new legislation for a new buyer, or just wait and amend the legislation with a new buyer's name if you choose a new buyer? I just think the process would be a lot simpler if you keep the legislation as it is for now. Do your homework with regard to the owner occupant bidder that the committee recommended. Make sure, quite often the amount that folks bid for how much they're going to put into it is quite low because they don't have access to the inside of the building. They can't make good numbers. But if you talk to them, they can get a line of credit or a building loan to do whatever it needs, and they're willing to do that. They just put what they know they're going to put into it so that they don't get hit. There's often misconception that we're going to check, and if they don't invest as much as they said they will, we're going to take it back or something. So that's often a low number. The committee sees that all the time. What matters is the bid number, and that we make sure that the buyer does have the financial wherewithal so this buyer has family members who are in the contracting fields, or that we believe that they're actually able to do the work that's necessary. That's the priority. Certainly they were a higher bidder, but also they have the wherewithal to get in the house and bring a new family to South Troy, as opposed to several of the other buyers, which are basically either looking to move their family or more likely it seems like just manage it well, but manage it for rental. And so I'd ask you to maybe reconsider that amendment for now. And if you do the due diligence and decide that you do want to swap out the buyer, it'll be a lot simpler later to just swap the names rather than having to create a new resolution.
Well, on that note, I believe that there were site visits. So you made a comment that the potential buyer was unable to see the inside. I had thought that there were site visits.
I don't know whether this buyer in particular, I don't have personal knowledge as to that. I just know that's an issue that the committee sees frequently. Being able to walk through and being able to bring a contractor in and do a proper inspection and get estimates is very different things. And so, obviously if you have a different buyer you prefer, feel free to make that motion. But the last thing I want to see is this property sit on our rolls for another 6 months waiting for another process.
I don't think anyone's suggesting that. And just like the prior one that we ended up obviously selling to someone else, it didn't take 6 months. So Councilmember Zaluski proposed the motion. Obviously, I'll leave it up to him.
Right. Well, it already passed. So if you don't want to reconsider, we can talk about it again next week. But
sounds good. Councilmember Zaluski, did you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, I understand what everything that Councilman Cummings is saying, and it's true. We do need to look into it deeper. We should talk to the folks that we're looking at. I guess I do want to ask both of you, Councilman Cummings and Gully, who were the three that you saw as I think it was Monica that said that there were three that ended up in the the top three. So do you know? I
don't have the spreadsheet in front of me if she wants to say that, but there were several on a couple of those bids in that neighborhood. There were a lot of folks that we have good records on as good property managers who renovate properties, and we have decent trust they'd be able to do it. If I remember correctly, their bids were significantly lower. But our primary goal is to make sure that something good happens for the building and for the neighborhood. We saw an owner occupant as a good solution, but if the council feels otherwise.
Okay, so to the question about, I don't want to reconsider. The amendment has passed, and I'm not going to offer a motion to reconsider. But I don't think we have to wait 6 months, like Council President Mantello said. the last time we did that for the Mountain View property, I actually mediated conversations between the two folks that were in contention, and we got it done fairly quickly after that. I think it was within a month or so.
Yep. Good. And real quick, Councilmember Zaluski, did Heather propose to live there?
I don't think so.
Okay,
But she lives right in that neighborhood.
got it.
And I know that she's invested a lot of money in her own building, and she's proposing to invest a lot in this building.
Okay.
So
Yeah, 93.5. Okay.
yeah, she's got a good track record. I haven't even spoken with her. I'm gonna call her now as a follow-up to all of this, but I haven't met her, and I haven't spoken with her.
Okay. So on the amended ordinance, we do have a motion, a second, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 7 ayes, 0 noes. We will move on to, we're getting there, guys. Come on. All right, I'm just gonna have to go back here. I apologize.
So I think it's resolution 36 now.
Yeah, I had the proposals in front of me. All right.
We need resolution 37.
I know.
before
We-
36.
Yep, I got it. Resolution 37, we have to jump to before resolution 36. Resolution 37, resolution determining that proposed action is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember McDermott. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, resolution 37 carries. Resolution 36. Resolution, bond resolution of the City of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of $5.43955 serial bonds to finance the reconstruction of various streets in the City of Troy. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Second.
Second, that was a tie. We'll give it to Councilmember Steele. Discussion. We are being reimbursed for every penny of this, correct, Andy?
Correct.
Cash flow only. Okay, further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 36 carries 7-0. Resolution 38, resolution determining that proposed action is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Maybe we can kill two birds with, I don't want to kill birds, sorry. Resolution 38, resolution 39 is LED funding, and we've decided to now move away from financing it through Siemens, and now we will be purchasing or bonding on our own. Andy, do you want to take this away real quick, or Monica, and just fill us in?
So in 2019, when the financing was originally proposed for the acquisition and conversion of the streetlights, financial analysis was done, and at that time, it was financially beneficial for the city to issue installment purchase debt for that. Subsequent to that, we issued the financing in tranches, and we have not closed the financing for the streetlight purchase portion of it. So this option is still available. I looked again in consultation with our financial advisors. Is it beneficial to still stay on that path, or should we look at issuing the debt ourselves? This all comes down to the interest rate. It is, given how low interest rates currently are, and where fiscal advisors is projecting them to go over the next 24 months, the city will save substantial amounts of money on interest by switching this over to bond resolution. This is not new debt whatsoever. It is just simply changing the means of how it is going to be financed.
Perfect. Questions? Monica, where is the LED now, the purchase? I know it was at PSC. We need approval.
No, it's still at National Grid. It went through right after you guys voted on it. The contract in April, it went right over to National Grid. They have up to 3 months for their approvals, and then it will go off to PSC. I did check in with Bob Chevy last month from National Grid. They were still in a review period. So we're still in process, but we're trying to nudge them every month or so to see how their review is going.
Quick question. In the meantime, I mean, there's a little bit of, lag, probably because National Grid maybe recognizes we're going to be doing LED. Is there any way to certain streetlights, like over on 7th Ave, I've had a couple of people, they put reports in, Monica, and they're just not, getting replaced very quickly. Is it because we're kind of in limbo here with the LED? National Grid's holding off on replacing some of these in terms of fixing them, or?
No, not at all. In fact, if you send us the poll numbers, we can actually do a job. Chip in the engineering department, he's actually overseeing all of that, and we're keeping a log of it. But if you have them send over a list of them, we just need the poll numbers and maybe the cross streets. And then we can get that information and just ask them to do that. Councilman McPherson actually did that with us the other day on a couple that she was looking at. So we nudge every once in a while. Sometimes it gets just caught in process. The example, like up at Councilman Steele's area on Peoples Avenue, because that would involve new poles and new fixtures completely at the top of Peoples Avenue, those might wait because that will skew purchase price as soon as we start replacing poles and those kinds of things. But lamps, that's not really a holdup for us.
Okay, thank you. They did report it, did do the whole numbers thing, but I'll get it over to Chip. Thank you.
Yep, and just an update on the 108 that we also authorized outside of this. They are on order. We did order the poles and the fixtures. So those are in process as well too. Those are all the CDBG areas that we're waiting for.
Is that 112th Street also?
Yep, South Troy, 120, it's 108 of them. So yeah, so that's in process as well.
Okay, that's good to know because the cones are up and people were asking. Thank you.
Yep. That will also be the area where we do the lighting experiment too, the 2 different styles of lighting. We'll actually be able to look at those heads and put different quality lighting. I think it's the 4000s or the 3500s, just to see and test those a little bit as well too.
Cool. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, Council President.
Yeah, Council Member Zaluski.
So Monica, does that include, what was his name? Russ Clark, who I guess has made the kind of a study of these, the LED lights and trying to avoid light pollution from street lights. I think I forwarded.
Yep. Yeah, multiple people have forwarded.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is taking into consideration those things in regards to, he was actually looking at a really bright light. And that wasn't the light that we had intended, like we had looked at as a standard anyway. But we'll do that little bit of a test run. It's a little bit, one is more clear, more like how they have them in the stores when you go to Home Depot, there's like natural light and then there's a warm light. It's very similar process. We're just going to do it on a street lamp.
Yeah. Yeah, they have I think they call them Kelvins or something. So it's like 2700 is soft, and then 3000 is brighter, and then you have like blue light. It's super bright. I bet you Nasha knows all about that.
It's a 35. I think it's 3500 and 4000 are the 2 lights that tend to go in those kinds of atmospheres, environments.
Okay. The other big thing that matters with LEDs, obviously, is the flicker frequency. So take a look at that as well. I think I sent an email about it at length a while ago.
And to Councilman Cummings, we are trying to reach out to the Lighting Research Center. We're actually no, wait, they are not responding because there's a whole thing going on with the Lighting Research Center, I believe, right now. So we're hopeful that maybe we'll still get some sort of response from, if not them, maybe through RPI to help with the community engagement aspect of this. We really want to work with them, but with a little bit of a dust up at RPI, it's causing a little bit of concern.
Okay, let me know if you need any help. I have a few contacts there that I think are still there. I have to double check. Yeah, lots of their folks moved to another institute. That being said, yeah, that's great. Certainly, if they can help with studying the light quality, that will be helpful. But the main thing is to make sure to learn from them about lighting consistency and about the effects of lighting flicker to make sure we're choosing the right lights.
Awesome. Further discussion, questions? All in favor of resolution 38?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, resolution 39, bond resolution, City of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of $8,250,000 serial bonds to finance the street lighting replacement projects. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution 39 carries 7-0. Resolution 40, resolution adopting the Congress Street Bridge Study. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. And Steve Strikeman's with us. Steve, what's going on with our Congress Street Bridge Study? We're super
Well, we had a presentation to the planning committee last month, and I believe everyone there was in attendance. This is really just a resolution adopting it to have your support for going after grants in the future. Although we should state we've already gotten one grant for $400,000 from the Hudson River Valley Greenway and an earmark potentially for $5.7 million for the bridge. But this just basically, Department of State likes to see this, and it helps us as we apply for other grants.
Did I ever tell you that I used to oversee that? No.
I knew you were going to say that.
I had to lighten it up a little. Anyway, further discussion. It's all very exciting. Super psyched.
You're turning into a meme now.
That's a good one. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, resolution 40 carries 7-0. Resolution 41, due to time, and obviously these will be on the regular meeting, 40, 41, and 42. If we want to save the reading of those for the regular meeting, I would hope everyone's in concurrence on that. Resolution 41, resolution proclaiming June 2021 to be Graduates Month and designating Saturday, June 5th at 11 a.m. as the second annual Graduates All Levels Citywide Car Parade. Council President Mantello, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Cummings. Discussion. We are super psyched, and I'll talk about it next Thursday, but the June 5th car parade, please put that on your calendar, 11 a.m. All throughout the city, hits every neighborhood, at least touches them, and cars, graduates, families, people line some of the streets, and I want to thank the chief from both departments for helping out. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution 41 carries 7-0. Resolution 42, resolution recognizing June 2021 as Pride Month in the city of Troy. Council members Zaluski, Council President Mantello, and obviously all members are welcome to join all of these rezos. Just let Laura know. Is there a motion? Motion, Councilmember Ash McPherson, on mute. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Councilmember Zaluski. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution 42 carries 7-0. I apologize. Yes. Resolution 43. Resolution appointing a Commissioner of Deeds for the City of Troy. Council President Mantello. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution 43 carries 7-0. Resolution 44, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Oasis Marinas LLC for the provision of all services necessary to manage and operate the City of Troy Marina. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I will make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Monica, I know that you have been working on this, and why don't you fill us in on what exactly Oasis, who they are. I did look them up, but what they propose. And my biggest concern is that they're from Maryland, and they look quite, I looked at their clients, and they're really impressive wharfs and harbors, and they're pretty high end. Do they know what they're getting into? And maybe you could fill us in.
But ironically, the first question I asked them, why Troy? So we are at the top of the Hudson River. We are tidal. We also are a journey on the Great Looper destination route. So I think that when people think of the Troy Town and Dock Marina, they forget the fact that it is a huge waterway. I mean, you understand that just given your previous roles, but it's a huge waterway, like a highway. You know, it's like going to Canada. It is going to Canada. So anyway, so they also operate a marina in Harris Bay, up in Lake George. So they are familiar with the area and have started to extend their reach. So Oasis Marina LLC is out of Maryland, as the council president has says. They're not here in the local area, but they do have a marina up in Harris Bay. They operate over 35 marinas up and down the eastern seaboard. I believe it's 6 states. And they got their start in the hospitality industry and the concierge and valet industry, which, you know, Councilman Cummings, knowing this, Troy Town down in Docker Marina, customer service is probably the #1 thing that you have to do with this. You are tour guide, you are, you know, hookups, you're giving directions, you're coordinating, you're saying hello and goodbye. You are sometimes the one individual that these people come in contact with as they're going up and down the rivers. So their background, and everything that they could bring to us with the proposal. I did send a copy of the proposal. Sorry for all of the documents. We're trying to be really inclusive of these contracts. So the first contract you got is our city contract, which is kind of vanilla. I hate to say that, but it's kind of vanilla because it outlines.
Monica, you toned out again.
All right, so you got with it, there's a lot of documents. And so, you know, with the documents, the first contract is our procurement contract. It's a standard contract that we enter into. We usually include the proposal as part of the contract itself. But the document I sent to you guys yesterday actually takes their proposal and really kind of line items it for you. So you can actually read in black and white on a contract basis what their proposal said in the bigger piece that you've been gotten with the agenda. So that'll be really the focus of what we do. So they will do everything. They will do marketing. They own a Marina Life publication.
So if anybody's familiar with that publication, they actually own that. So they'll do a feature on the city of Troy and its marina. They'll actually do a specific brochure and publication to our marina, highlighting the businesses and the services and the destinations within the city and the county and the region here. They do swag bags. They will monitor all our social media. They'll handle our social media. And honestly, one of the other biggest, I mean, in addition to all of that, they were the only proposer that literally said to us, give us the keys, we'll take and operate, we'll hire, we'll manage the whole thing for you. The other one of the bidders, and all the bidders were very good. The two other bidders, one bidder wanted to be our consultant and wanted us to completely operate the marina. And then wanted to just be on a consultant basis with us in case we had questions. The other was kind of a hybrid. They wanted a consulting fee, but then they also wanted us to pay them to run the marina, and then share in some service work and some other things that they did. But they didn't carry the huge customer service or marketing component to actually get the word out. We have an amazing feature right now that is brand new. We have pump out stations, we have showers, we have fuel. We are the last stop before you hit the canal system to be able to do all of those things and be able to get gas before you jump into the canal system, where the pricing could be a little bit higher because you're a captive audience. So being able to really get that information out on a large basis to be able to capture the great loopers that do come up through the system, to be able to capture the people who go through the Champlain Canal, and also to be able to entice people to come north rather than go south if they have large boats. So Oasis, what we felt, the committee that reviewed it was going to be able to deliver us everything and more, and they're really super excited. They're really stoked to be here, and they're ready to get busy and get going. They have a whole training program. They have their own slip management system. They got it. It's kind of awesome. It puts it up on a different scale.
Yeah, I guess for me, I am a little concerned that they are not a local outfitter, but do they plan to hire local folks, Monica? And obviously, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know firsthand, obviously, the value of our waterfront and the potential is endless, but in terms of, making a fortune, et cetera, like say the wharf, I believe that just some of their harbors were, incredible, but saying that, have they, walked the site and, learn the surroundings, and are they going to hire local people? So, if something, obviously you want to have that connection if something goes wrong. They are the ambassadors of, our marina, of obviously right before the Troy Dam, but saying that, are they familiar with our area?
Yes, actually, they did respond when we did our bidders meeting. They have been here. Like I said, they also have a facility in Lake George that they picked up last year, so they're familiar with the site as well. They do hire local. What they'll do is they will bring in, like say, for example, they might have somebody from Paris Bay or somebody from one of their other facilities will come in and be able to hire the staff on a local basis. And then we'll be able to train the staff and put them through their training program. So they will hire local.
What Lake George? I didn't see Lake George on their list.
Paris Bay. I said that a little bit earlier.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really having a hard time hearing you. Okay. I'll open it up for other members. Council Member Cummings? You're on mute.
Thank you. First, I do have one contractual question that I'll just ask briefly for Rick to look at, and then I'll ask a couple operational questions for Monica, and then we can go back to Rick for the answer to the contractual question, if that works. So the contractual question is, in that most recent contract that we were sent, that was sort of their model, I think,
There's a section 12 about security and our obligation to provide security to the premise. I just wanted to get clarity on what that obligation means. Certainly, our marina, unlike many, is very in a downtown, which is great for voters. It makes it a much better stop for a lot of folks to stop in and enjoy the downtown. But it certainly could come with some risks to boats. I've never heard in my time there of any damage to boats or anything like that. But certainly as we open up the lower dock to public use, which goes to my second question, I just want to make sure we're not getting into more than we are aware of with that security clause. I don't want to see us needing to staff it permanently with a police officer or anything.
I don't think that was the intent of it. But it's just...
Sorry, I've got a plane going over me. I think that question came through.
Yeah, it did. So
and
the
then,
intent for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The intent for the security is no different than what we've provided security in the past, and in fact, we're actually adding cameras to the site as well too. So it's just saying that if there is a need for security at the site, it is the responsibility of us to provide that. That's not included in their contract price.
Okay. Yeah, I guess what I'm concerned about is if their standard for security may be higher than what we've done in the past. This clause seems a little bit vague. So if Rick could just read it through, make sure we're not committing to something too extreme. And then in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, Rick can review it, but it says that may be required, not shall be required.
Yeah. I read that as.
Councilman? I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I think I don't have the clause in front of me at the moment. I would have to move around my screen here, and I'm not that adept, but I have read through the entire management agreement. The way I read that clause is that it puts the responsibility for security upon the city, meaning that the manager, Oasis, will not be hiring security personnel. I frankly didn't think that, I mean, it's a lot of the operation here is going to be a learning process. We're not expecting, I guess, a lot of security needs for the marina. We've never had such in the past. I suppose that could develop, in which case we'll have to, revisit the situation. But I think it leaves it up to our judgment what kind of security is required, and since we take all the responsibility.
Okay.
So I really didn't look at it as any more than just regular downtown. Maybe we'll have the police walk by once in a while and patrol, that sort of thing. But
sure.
We're not planning on hiring security officers. We're not planning on, carding people walking by or anything like that.
Okay. As long as it doesn't give them the ability to require that of us, I'm good with that. And then operationally, a couple questions. One is I've talked several times about this location as it and the services that we offer there existing as a prime place to welcome automobile drivers to the city as well. The staff there is already familiar with how to tell people how to walk around downtown and what the local restaurant scene is like, etc. Has there been any discussion with them about allowing automobile visitors to come and get maps from them, etc.? Has that been part of the discussion at all yet, or could it be?
Sure, it could be. You mean like have maps and stuff in the dockmaster shed?
Right. I mean, that's already a thing. Certainly when we were there, we often would direct people to the farmer's market or whatever else. But
their main focus is customer service, and they came from a concierge service industry. So
I think they would do great at that. I think, my ideal would be that we actually have a little welcome center sign that goes up when they're in season that directs people from the Green Island Bridge and the Hoosick Street Bridge directly to them so that they can welcome people, at least in absence of a real welcome center. I don't know if they would want something else in the contract to add that service, but I think it would be helpful, especially now that it's right at that parking lot. Let's see. Is the plan still to have the docks past Dinosaur Barbecue free and temp available to the public
that is one thing that we're gonna have to talk to them about the rates. We'll actually be coming to you probably the next council meeting to establish the rates and like if there's an hour free or whatever that thing is too, because we have to up the rates, but we want to talk to them about what they're seeing as an industry up and down the river. So we need to modify those, and with that, we'll have some of that language included. You know, say if it is for an event or if it's a free thing or something like that. Because we have to establish the rates, but we did include the 800 linear feet minus the fire space. But we did include the 800 linear feet in the contract for them to manage because we also have them manage the ships that come up and down. So.
Yep. Okay, great. Has there been discussion of adding a kayak launch dock and kayak rental?
We talked about doing, we kind of asked them what they would be considering to do. I mean, they'll work with us about, they've done those in the past at other places. So as we look to, you know, get this year's season under our belt, and then we can look at whether they can add some benefit to the Eagles Avenue boat launch, or maybe they can take on 123rd Street, you know, all those kinds of things. I think really we just want to get them in here, or get an operator in here, and then be able to kind of explore those other options as well too.
Great. And then the last is timing of the season.
Nasha?
Yeah.
When you get done, maybe this will help because it's really, I don't know if you're having a hard time, but I'm having a really hard time hearing Monica. If
We
you can
all
just
are.
mute yourself, maybe that's what's doing it. No?
No,
All right.
Councilmember Ash McPherson, she tried a couple times.
Okay.
So yeah, the last question was the season. I know anecdotally, not from our time in the marina, but from folks who managed the marina before, that the time before the canal opens is a big time for the marina often because folks come up and sort of just sit in Troy for a week waiting for the canal to open sometimes. And that can be a nice spot for loopers to stop by and have a little bit of a break before they race up the canal. And then similarly, that's also often the prime striper season, which it's important to have the docks open to be getting those striper fishermen out and coming to have lunch at Brown's, etc. So what is the season currently defined, and is there discussion of how you're going to explore that for the next season?
Well, it's an annual contract, so we'll define, I mean, the canal system opens up different times each year. I mean, it literally just opened up late last week.
Yep.
And striper season obviously is dependent on weather sometimes.
Yep.
So we'll work with them as far as defining when particular things. So we'll work with them over the winter to define when that is. I anticipate that we'll run with the canal system for the closure of the season as well too. Is trying to get it as late as possible so that we can safely get the docks in and out as well too.
Great. Yeah, broadly, it seems like it's a vast upgrade. Certainly, it seems like they have a tremendous amount of useful experience and useful technology to help market us and make our dock and marina a key stopping point along the Hudson. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Cummings, further discussion, questions?
I think Monica's like trying out for the final scene in the original Star Wars.
Oh my gosh. It's
Red
rough.
5. We're attacking the Death Star. That's what it sounds like.
I know. I don't know what happened. She was great. And now, like Councilmember Ash McPherson says, it sounds like a synthesizer.
Yeah, it's
so
like radio communications.
yeah, a little guitar happening. Listen, this is near and dear to my heart. Councilmember Cummings, you asked a number of questions that I had on my list. The fees for the docking per foot, per feet. We did talk about over at the Dinosaur, Monica, having free docking. So, when negotiating that, which I actually thought would have been a part of this, but obviously we want to see, free docking for you know, obviously boaters and others. So, a certain amount of hours, et cetera. So.
Yep, that's usually pretty traditional anyway.
She's back. Now we can hear you now. So for me, you know, the whole point here is to get someone on board, get someone qualified, but really tap into the potential of what I feel is the front door to our downtown, to our neighborhood. So certainly this can be a huge boon. I'm hopeful, and I just obviously hope that, you know, they are hiring local people, Monica, and things to that nature, as I mentioned earlier, because obviously, you know, this is key and this is new for us, and we want it to work, period. So. Any other questions, comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, all right, resolution 44 carries 7-0. Resolution 45, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with RKG Associates Inc. to perform the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Council Member Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Council Member Gully. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution 45 carries 7-0. Resolution 46, resolution Troy City Council recognizing Juneteenth. Council Member Steele, Council President Mantello, and anyone else, just let Mara know. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Council Member Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Council Member Ash McPherson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution 46 carries 7-0. Resolution 47, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment of the agreement with Chasing Companies for further design and construction phase services for the city of Troy Riverwalk Trail. Is there, Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Council Member Zaluski. Is there a second?
A second.
Second, Council Member Gully. And Steve, this is what I think you were talking about earlier.
And this is actually when I expected to talk about it. So I apologize for stumbling through my last presentation there. I just really wasn't, I was caught off guard. So again, this is for two areas. We've already had the planning done for the Riverwalk extension behind the hotel, but we did not. We started to bid out construction documents for the 4 sites that we were looking at, the design and the construction documents, but because we weren't sure what the design was going to be, we pulled the construction document piece out of that bid. So now that the design has been done, we know what the construction documents are going to be. We're having them develop the construction documents for the piece behind the hotel, as well as the design and the construction documents for the piece underneath the Hoosick Street Bridge. And they were able to tell us what it would cost to do the construction documents for under the bridge, because they were familiar with the area and exactly what that request was going to be. So this is just really, we're amending the agreement that we already had with them to add in things that it's most natural for them to do, because they're so knowledgeable about both of these projects.
Awesome.
Council President?
Yes, Council Member Cummings.
And the next one will be their parking lot. Yeah, so under the Hoosick Street Bridge, are you coordinating with the dividing line group and the Arts Center on this?
Yeah, we are. And this is lower than, this is like right along the river, but yes, we are.
Certainly. I know they had done some initial visioning around the whole area. I don't know how much that got fleshed out through their process, but certainly
that sounds good. Yeah, that's my main question. Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 47 carries 7-0. Please do not leave me. We have a special meeting to act on the Marina resolution. So if we can take a motion to
adjourn.
Motion, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Second,
There a
please.
second. Councilmember Zaluski seconds. Discussion. Oh, Councilmember Gully seconds. Discussion. All in favor of adjourning to a special meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, 7-0 adjourn, and let's go into the special. Mara, do you need us to wait, or are we good to go?
We're all set. Let's go.
Let's go. Come
The
on.
lights just automatically off at City Hall, so it's getting dark.
All right, 7:15. The special meeting was supposed to begin, but that's okay. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll call the special meeting to order. And how about Councilmember Steele lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilmember Steele. Mara will do a roll call.
Councilmember Gully,
Here.
Councilmember Ash McPherson,
Here.
Councilmember Steele,
Present.
Councilmember Cummings,
Present.
Councilmember Zaluski,
Here.
Councilmember McDermott,
Here.
Council President Mantello.
I am here.
7 present, none absent.
I don't believe we need to approve the minutes and presentation of the agenda. We have one resolution. Public forum, anyone signed up, Mara?
No.
Thank you. Local laws, none. Ordinance, none. Resolution 44.
Resolution authorizing the mayor, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Oasis Marinas LLC for the provision of all services necessary to manage and operate the City of Troy Marina. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion.
Council President.
Council President?
Yes. Councilmember Ash McPherson and Councilmember Cummings.
We ask the mayor to pop on if you'd like to say anything.
Mayor? There he is.
Yes. You'd like a comment on the marina? I'd like you to pass it as quickly as you can. I stare out at it every day and see it's sitting there waiting for boaters who are going to come to Troy and spend their money. So get on with it.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings.
I just had one question about the fees. If we can't, what is the timeline for approving fees? And if we can't come to an agreement with this vendor on fees, what happens to this contract?
So, I mean, we're gonna do industry standard. We are not gonna go crazy high or crazy low. It'll be market rate for our area. So we'll take a look at all of those. We do the same thing for the gas prices as well too. So, I mean, Todd's already been looking at some of the fees and some of the pricing already. So we'll start those conversations and get a recommendation over you guys as soon as possible.
Okay. But are they going to be able to start opening the marina or are we trying to get that before our special meeting?
Well, we have some work to do. I mean, they got to come and get their technology. They got to hire staff. They got to train, they got to get themselves familiarized. We got to fill the fuel tanks. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to do in a very short period of time. So I would assume that probably by that June finance meeting, we should probably be able to get to those things. those requests for the docking fees and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, this is probably a good year to try it out too. We don't have Rockin' on the River this year. So we can warm up to that idea and see where that's going to take us into 2022, and then still have those conversations with them. But they're all open to events. They want to do things in the parking lot. They want to draw attention to the waterfront. Brown's is doing some sort of like an exhibition thing at the marina. So like we're open to all of those things that are going to draw people and draw visitors and tourists to the area as well.
Great. Yeah, I guess we had some issues with once the parking app was approved, they were expecting certain revenue, and then it meant we couldn't do certain things with the fees. So I'm just a little concerned about how much revenue they're expecting. Is that going to make it hard for us to do the, Wednesday nights are free, or are they going to be flexible on those things?
They were pretty conservative.
And do we have any leverage after we pass this?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that everybody was really conservative in their numbers because we didn't have data. And so they're really going on the really conservative side of things, where they knew we were going to open late in season. So there's actually, I think, more money in fuel service than there is in actual docking fees. So I think that's part of the nice part about all of the contracts or the proposals we did receive, is that there is no data. So everybody's extremely conservative. And I honestly think that's why the other two bidders bid the way they did. They didn't even bid how we asked them to bid, because I think they were concerned about not having data.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And, to dovetail, that's why I was asking about the docking fees and all that. And I did see they did ask a question, what have the fees for docking, et cetera, been in the past? And we did respond. The marina's been closed. The last known rate was $1.50 per foot. In 2016, special accommodations were made during peak weekends and events. Surge rates did apply. We'd be open to suggestions with current day and special event rates. And, just to dovetail Councilmember Cummings, I want this to work terribly. It's truly is near and dear to my heart to, work with communities across the state and be able to develop waterfronts and obviously work with partners across the state. I want that to happen in my hometown. So I want this to succeed. And that's why when I looked at their clients, it just got me a little nervous. But saying that, I just hope and pray that, they're all about Troy. They're all about partnering with other communities, partnering with businesses, capitalizing on what we know is just a true treasure in our backyard. So saying that, I want to see kayaks, I want to see events, things of that nature, and hopefully they can bring that to the table, but also just ensure that, this isn't about making boatloads of money, because they're not going to make
yacht loads.
Yacht boats. Saying that, this is about really promoting our waterfront and really creating partnerships. So anyway, all right. So you'll get back to us with fees, all that good stuff. June meeting, Monica, you think?
Well, if we want to open the marina, we have to. So yes.
Good. We'd like to hear that.
We certainly don't want to keep it free until July.
I don't mind it free as long as we have people coming.
But I got to pay for the staff.
Truth. Anasha and I will go down there, right, Anash?
I was thinking we should just have council office hours there.
All right, further discussion. And Monica, I know you put a lot of time in work, and staff. And I'm not giving you a hard time at all. I just want it to work. That's all. All right, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Resolution
44 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Before we motion, no, I'm kidding. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Definitely a second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for the expediency of being able to flip that around for me.
Thank you. No problem. Good meeting, everyone. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Peace out.
See ya. Yep. Good
Good
night.
night.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.